that Tsundere goddess falls in love with me. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 576. Following. The boss's words made Huakayanwu's eyes slightly widen. Did you meet a ghost? The boss nodded heavily and said, yes, I met a ghost. He said with certainty, absolutely true, I really met a ghost. That guy's body is transparent and can float in the air. What's even more weird is that the figure looks like someone who died tragically. I can guarantee that it is definitely a ghost, not a person. The boss said seriously, not joking. Hearing this, the other people in the post station just laughed happily and didn't take it seriously. Hearing this, Huakayanwu fell into deep thought. Are you sure? Of course, I came back that night and couldn't sleep all night. I fell asleep during the day and I had a nightmare in the middle of my sleep and woke up again. Anyway, that place is not clean. You'd better not go there. He looked at Huakayanwu and said seriously, if you are caught by a ghost and become a ghost, it would be a pity. It would be a huge loss for anyone to not be able to appreciate Huakayanwu's performance in the future. Someone in the post station was whispering, if Huakayanwu turns into a female ghost, I will go there even if I die. Huakayanwu looked back at Luchuan and said, let's go to the valley to see what's going on. Luchuan nodded slightly, and then Huakayanwu walked out of the post station. Do you have a clue? Luchuan stood at the door and looked at Huakayanwu and asked. Yes, one of the functions of the spiritual bamboo is to absorb the surrounding souls so that they will not dissipate easily. There is such an effect? Guzaya-san was very surprised. Yes, that's why it's called the spiritual bamboo. Listening to the boss's description just now, the ghosts he said are actually souls. We will definitely find the spiritual bamboo when we go there. Huakayanwu said very confidently, and at the same time, she felt a lot more relaxed and breathed a sigh of relief. At this rate of progress, I'm afraid it won't take a few days for us to gather materials and revive the spirit tree. She took the lead and walked into the valley. Her steps became much lighter, and she was looking forward to getting the spiritual bamboo as soon as possible. Luchuan and the others followed closely behind and went deep into the flower valley together. Just as they left, a figure appeared at the entrance of the post station, leaning against the door frame, staring at the backs of Huakayanwu and Luchuan from afar. At this time, the boss chased out and asked, brother, have you paid? Don't walk around without paying. If I see you running away, I will never let you go. The man in front of him was wearing a mask and a bamboo hat. He didn't look like a normal person. He looked a little mysterious, like someone who was going to run away. So the boss was particularly vigilant. Are you talking to me? He turned his head and looked at the boss. Nonsense, it's just you. Who else can I talk to if I don't talk to you? If you pay the money, you can do whatever you want. Really? Then stretch out your hand and I'll give you the money. The boss stretched out his finger and pointed at the man, saying, pay. The man took out a few copper coins from his pocket and put them in his palm. The boss counted them and then nodded with satisfaction. Okay, do whatever you want. Swish! Exclamation mark. Suddenly, the man pulled out a dagger from behind and chopped off the boss's right hand that was receiving the money. The knife was swung so quickly that the boss's hand fell off before he could react, and blood gushed out from the broken wrist. The boss eyes widened instantly and he quickly covered his right wrist and screamed miserably. Are you crazy? Why did you cut me? You are a lunatic, a beast. The boss roared angrily. The man looked at him and said coldly, you said that, as long as I pay the money, you can do whatever you want. You are a fool, a lunatic. You don't understand human language, right? At this time, everyone in the post station heard the movement and came out one after another. When they saw the scene in front of them, they were all angry and walked towards the man, wanting to ask him for an explanation. But the next moment, the man flashed, holding the dagger tightly, and rushed towards the crowd. Swish! Exclamation mark. His figure flashed quickly in the crowd, and almost in an instant, he returned to his original position. The dozen people who came out were all frozen in place. After 3 seconds, these people fell to the ground one after another. They were all cut in the throat by the man in an instant. They didn't even have room for resistance. They all died here. At the entrance of the post station, corpses were everywhere and blood was flowing wildly. The originally warm post station shop instantly turned into a horrible scene. And the mysterious man wearing a mask walked forward along the way Luchuan and the others left. Luchuan, I finally met you. He laughed coldly and wiped the blood on the dagger as he walked. Just at that moment, he completed the precise killing of more than a dozen people. This speed and efficiency are really terrible. At this time, Luchuan had already gone deep into the valley and entered a group of cherry trees. The flowers fell like a drizzle. Walking here is like walking in a fairy tale world. Isn't it beautiful here? People in Huacheng come here to play when they have nothing to do, pick flowers and enjoy the scenery. Huakayan Wu said with a smile as he walked. The scenery is really nice. Gu Xiaorao exclaimed, admiring the surrounding scenery with a satisfied look. Luchuan looked at Huakayan Wu and asked, how far is it to the bamboo forest? Almost. After crossing the mountain in front, we will reach the bamboo forest. Be careful when you enter the bamboo forest. There are many people practicing martial arts there. Huakayan Wu reminded. Soon, the four of them climbed over a mountain and looked down from the middle of the mountain. They could see a green bamboo forest swaying slowly in the wind. It's not far. We are here. Luchuan glanced at the bamboo forest at the foot of the mountain. The four of them quickened their pace and walked into the bamboo forest. After entering the bamboo forest, it became much cooler. The bamboos here are very tall and straight, more than 10 meters high. As soon as I entered the bamboo forest, I saw a swordsman waving a wooden sword in his hand and chopping at the bamboo. Further ahead, I could see warriors punching and kicking at the bamboo, sweating profusely and training non-stop. As Huakayan Wu said, there are indeed many warriors here. There are so many bamboos, probably tens of thousands, and they all look exactly the same. I'm afraid it will be difficult to find them in a short time. Luchuan said helplessly as he scanned the bamboos around him. Huakayan Wu looked up at the sky. It's evening now. If we can wait until night, it will be much easier for us to find it. Luchuan nodded slightly. You mean to find the spiritual bamboo through the soul, right? Yes, as long as we wait until night, we can find the spiritual bamboo accurately. However, at night, this valley is extremely dangerous. We must be prepared for battle. Luchuan said calmly, you can rest assured about this. You go find the materials and leave the rest to me. Chapter 577, number 1 on the assassin list. Several people walked in the bamboo forest, looking for the so-called spiritual bamboo. However, after searching for a long time, they could not accurately find the spiritual bamboo in this vast sea of bamboo. Perhaps it is true as Huakayan Wu said, there is no chance to find the spiritual bamboo unless it is night. Moreover, even at night, it is still a matter of luck to encounter it. Let's take a rest here. It's only 1 or 2 hours before dark. Just wait. After Huakayan Wu said that, he found a bamboo chair next to him and sat down. People in Huacheng often come to this bamboo forest. This bamboo chair may have been made by a kind person. Gu Xiaorao and Gu Xiaosang sat on the bamboo chair next to Huakayan Wu. A breeze blew, and the whole bamboo sea began to sway slowly. The bamboo leaves all over the sky fell down, as if it was raining bamboo leaves. At this time, a man in black tights came over. He wore a bamboo hat and walked quickly among the bamboo forest. At this time, the man walked towards Huakayan Wu. Miss Hua, I didn't expect to meet you here. It's really rare. He walked forward, took off his mask, and showed a kind smile. He looked relatively young, but there was a deep scar on his forehead, and he couldn't help but reveal a murderous aura. Zhao Chengjun, what are you doing here? Huakayan Wu asked. I'm practicing here. Many martial artists practice here, and I'm no exception. He looked up at the sky and said, do you see the bamboo leaves all over the sky? I can guarantee that I won't get a single leaf on me in this rain of bamboo leaves. Gu Xiaosang widened her eyes with curiosity and looked at him in surprise. Really? Can you avoid all the dense bamboo leaves? She felt that this was impossible to do. It was too difficult. However, Zhao Chengjun smiled faintly and said confidently, of course, I dare to say this, so I have the confidence. How about I show you? Hua Qianwu quickly raised her hand to stop him. No, you continue to practice. We will find materials here. Okay, then I wish you good luck. Lu Chuan looked at him and asked curiously, you have practiced your body skills so well. What do you usually do with it? Zhao Changjin looked at Lu Chuan and said, to be honest, I'm the second on the Hua Cheng assassin list. I have served the Hua family many times and we are very familiar with each other. So, you should know why I want to practice body skills, right? Lu Chuan nodded slightly. I didn't expect it to be an assassin. It really requires a very flexible physical fitness. Hua Qianwu went on to say, Zhao Changjin's strength is very strong. He often kills people invisibly. Many of the people who were assassinated are powerful people in the city, but no matter what kind of power they use, they can't find any clues about him. Hearing this, Gu Xiaosang couldn't help but sigh. Really? It sounds like you're very powerful. I didn't expect you to be so powerful. However, someone as strong as you is only ranked second, so the first one must be extremely powerful? Zhao Changjin shrugged helplessly. I haven't seen the first one for a long time. The last time he appeared in Hua Cheng was 5 years ago. At that time, he killed one of the city lord's sons and then left Hua Cheng. Even if the city lord knew it was him, he couldn't do anything. Hearing this, Gu Xiaorao immediately became curious. Is this guy so powerful? Even the city lord doesn't dare to attack him? That's right, it's not entirely because of his strength, but also because of the power behind him. Hua Qianwu looked at Lu Chuan and said, let me tell you directly, the first on the assassin list is called Lu Ming. He is from the Lu family. He once stayed in Hua Cheng for a period of time and assassinated more than a dozen dignitaries in succession. He left Hua Cheng after escaping unscathed. His influence still exists in Hua Cheng. I'm afraid no one can shake his position as the first one for the time being. Zhao Changjin nodded repeatedly to show his agreement. You are right, but I don't know when he will return to Hua Cheng. I'm afraid it will be difficult to see that day. After all, he is a member of the Lu family. He sighed and turned to leave. Lu Chuan looked at Hua Qianwu and asked curiously, has this Lu Ming been here before? Yes, he was here to carry out a family mission, and he killed many people in succession before he stopped. During the time he stayed in Hua Cheng, the whole city was in turmoil and the people were in panic. Many powerful people were terrified, fearing that they would be the next one. During that time, all the noble families in Hua Cheng made high-profile statements, saying that they would always stand with the Lu family and would never betray. Lu Chuan touched his chin, thought for a moment, and said, it seems that during that period, the Lu family was fighting with a giant family, so they sent Lu Ming out to intimidate others not to stand on the wrong side. It seems that this guy is really powerful. He can make the whole Hua Cheng panic by himself. He is indeed not an ordinary person. Hua Qianwu nodded slightly and said, during that period, I didn't even dare to come out to perform dance, for fear of being targeted by that guy. Lu Chuan, do you think the Lu family will send him to deal with you? Gu Xiaorao looked at Lu Chuan with some concern. Hearing this, Lu Chuan fell into deep thought. It is indeed possible. After all, Lu Ming is familiar with Hua Cheng and knows how to assassinate the target. Let's see what happens. Gradually, dusk fell. The other people in the bamboo forest left one after another. At night, the bamboo forest is full of dangers, and ordinary people generally do not stay here. Hua Qianwu stood up, glanced around, and said, let's go and start looking for the spiritual bamboo. If we haven't found it by midnight, we will go home. The four of them searched around in the bamboo forest together. At the same time, in another corner of the bamboo forest, Zhao Changjin took off his hat and shuttled back and forth among the fallen leaves. His figure turned into a series of after images and instantly avoided all the fallen bamboo leaves. After dodging, he stopped, panting with exhaustion. Just as he was about to find a place to rest, a figure suddenly walked out from the side. Taking advantage of the bright moonlight, Zhao Changjin looked at the other party. What do you want to talk to me about? Tell me, what do you want to talk to me about? You are so mysterious. Do you want to commission me to assassinate you? Zhao Changjin looked at the other party and asked very vigilantly. You have changed a lot. Your body skills have been trained to this level. Hearing this, Zhao Changjin frowned slightly and looked at the other party curiously. Your voice looks familiar. The other party smiled coldly. What? Don't you recognize me? The next moment, Zhao Changjin suddenly opened his eyes wide and said in surprise, Lu Ming, it's you. You actually returned to Hua Cheng. What are you doing back? He walked towards Zhao Changjin and said, we are in the same business. What do you think I came back for? Chapter 578 Bamboo Forest Assassination. Zhao Changjin looked at the man in black in front of him. He was wearing a black mask, which covered his face very tightly. If he hadn't remembered Lu Ming's voice, he probably wouldn't have recognized him at all. Senior Lu Ming, you're back. I guess you have a new assassination target this time? He asked curiously. Yes, I came here to hunt down someone. That person is very strong and a tough character. Zhao Changjin was a little surprised. Lu Ming said that the other person was very strong, so this person's strength must be extraordinary. Senior Lu Ming, when are you going to take action? That person is in the bamboo forest. I'll get ready and take action soon. Zhao Changjin took a breath and sighed in his heart that Lu Ming was worthy of his speed of action. Who is the target? Do you need me to help you? Zhao Changjin asked sincerely. Lu Ming shook his head slightly. No need. If you meet that person, you will only die. Hearing this, Zhao Changjin could not sit still and said for himself, I'm very different from 5 years ago. My current strength is the 7th level of the Martial King realm, and my body skills have been cultivated to the peak. Even if I can't beat my opponent, I can have full confidence to escape. Lu Ming sneered. Do you want to kill that person with just these? I think you'd better stop dreaming. Then at least tell me who it is. I don't know who the person you are talking about is. How do I know if I'm an opponent? Lu Ming stared at him and said seriously, when you came to the bamboo forest today, the first person you saw was the target I wanted to kill. Zhao Changjin lowered his head slightly, thought carefully, and quickly stepped back. Wasn't the first person I saw when I came to the bamboo forest today Hua Qianwu? This person's assassination target turned out to be Hua Qianwu. Do you know what's going on? Do you still want to join me? Zhao Changjin shook his head quickly. Although he was not doing something that could be seen in public, he knew how to repay a favor. The Hua family had done him a favor, so he certainly couldn't repay it with hatred and kill Hua Qianwu instead. I can't do it. I welcome you back to Hua Cheng. As for your mission, you can do it yourself. Lu Ming patted his shoulder and said, then I'll go. You continue to practice your body skills, wait for my good news, and don't walk around. After that, he passed by Zhao Changjin. Zhao Changjin stood there, clenched his fists, gritted his teeth, and frowned. Hua Qianwu was about to die, and he couldn't accept this fact. Not to mention that the Hua family had done him a favor. Even Hua Qianwu, she shouldn't die. Not only was she beautiful, but she was also kind and cheerful. As the daughter of a wealthy family, she was still willing to perform dances for the people and help the poor all year round. Apart from anything else, he definitely couldn't do it. He sighed and said helplessly, Hua Qianwu, I really didn't expect that the meeting just now would be the last meeting between the two of us. What a pity. He didn't think Hua Qianwu had any chance of escaping. Even if Hua Qianwu escaped back to the Hua family, she still couldn't escape Lu Ming's poisonous hands. He could only sigh helplessly and continue his training. At this time, Hua Qianwu and the other 4 were looking for traces of the spiritual bamboo in the bamboo forest. I can't find it at all. It seems that we will return empty-handed tonight. Hua Qianwu sighed a little disappointed. It doesn't matter. There is still a lot of time in the future. Let's look for it slowly. Tomorrow we can go find the next material first. Lu Chuan comforted. Hua Qianwu nodded slightly. She was too anxious in her heart. She just wanted to get the materials together as soon as possible. Otherwise the family would never have peace. In the dark bamboo forest, only the moonlight provided light, but the visibility was still very low. Beyond more than 10 meters, it was not very clear. After walking forward for a distance, suddenly at the corner of a small road, a figure suddenly appeared, causing several people to stop. There seems to be a figure standing there. Gu Xiaosang stretched out his little finger and hid behind Gu Xiaorao nervously. After Gu Xiaorao and Lu Chuan looked over, they also stood still. Sure enough, there is someone. That person is standing in the middle of the road and doing nothing. It looks very abnormal. Lu Chuan said, and then he carefully moved forward. That person doesn't seem to move. Lu Chuan, if it's not unexpected, this figure may be related to the spiritual bamboo. Hua Kaiyan Wu said excitedly. Hearing this, Lu Chuan nodded slightly. In this case, I have to go over and see the situation. He continued to walk forward carefully. Not long after walking, Lu Chuan suddenly felt that the bronze sword on his back was trembling slightly. Lu Chuan frowned. The bronze sword has reacted, and this guy in front of me is definitely an evil spirit. After hearing this, Hua Kaiyan Wu's mouth corners couldn't help but rise. If it was an evil spirit, then it was basically concluded that this guy was a soul left behind by the spiritual bamboo. Great, we found the target. Hua Kaiyan Wu said excitedly. At this moment, the figure in front of them slowly turned around and headed towards Lu Chuan and the others. At this moment, they saw the man's appearance. He was just an ordinary Hua Cheng man, dressed simply, but half of his face was chopped off with a knife. When the man saw Lu Chuan, he immediately let out a shrill scream and rushed towards Lu Chuan. Swish! The evil spirit was extremely fast, stretching out his hands to grab Lu Chuan. Lu Chuan directly drew out the bronze sword and chose to go straight up. If other people encountered this evil spirit, it would probably be difficult to deal with. Most people have no means to harm the evil spirit, so when facing the evil spirit, they only have the choice of running away. If they are possessed by the evil spirit, it would be even more miserable, almost a death sentence. Swish! Lu Chuan rushed to the front of the evil spirit, swung the bronze sword directly, and slashed at the evil spirit. The sword drew a perfect arc in the air, directly hitting the evil spirit, and slashing heavily on the evil spirit. Ugh! The evil spirit screamed, and the sword directly chopped his chest. Swish! The next moment, the evil spirit turned into a black mist and floated in the air. After a moment, the black mist in the air gathered towards the bronze sword and poured into the sword body. Seeing this, Lu Chuan couldn't help but become curious. This bronze sword could actually absorb the dust after the evil spirit died. The evil spirit is dead. Look around quickly. The spiritual bamboo must be in this area. After Lu Chuan finished speaking, the four of them quickly dispersed and began to search around. Hua Kaiyan Wu hurriedly wandered among the bamboo forests, one after another to carefully observe the bamboos. Lu Chuan also began to search seriously. At night, the spiritual bamboo will have a weak fluorescence all over, which is very special compared to the surrounding bamboos. However, this fluorescence is not conspicuous, and it is even more difficult to find in the dense bamboo forest. Lu Chuan walked alone in the bamboo forest. I don't know when, there is always a cold breath coming from behind him. Chapter 579 Looming. Lu Chuan, who was in the bamboo forest, gradually felt that something was wrong. He felt a little cold on his back, and occasionally heard extremely faint footsteps, but when he turned around, he couldn't see anything. Lu Chuan gradually felt that something was wrong. His feelings would not appear out of thin air, and it couldn't be an illusion. I'm afraid that someone is really observing him in secret, ready to take action at any time. Lu Chuan frowned. He didn't expect that he was being watched in this bamboo forest. As for who it was, he didn't know yet. But it must be an enemy. If it was an enemy, then the scope would be a bit large. Not to mention the Lu family, there are also the Zhu family in Huacheng, the Cheyenne Wu Gate, and a group of forces looking for branches of the sacred tree. There are too many possibilities, and Lu Chuan really couldn't figure out who was watching him. At this moment, Lu Chuan suddenly turned around and looked into the dark bamboo forest. His sharp eyes stared at the bamboo forest, and after a moment, he said lightly, "Come out, there's no point in hiding." After a moment of silence, a faint voice slowly appeared. Your senses are sharp enough. I was hiding so secretly, but you still noticed me. You are really an extraordinary guy. No wonder the family sent me to assassinate you. Lu Chuan listened to the other party's low and hoarse voice, knowing that this guy was a ruthless person, and asked, "Family? What family? Are you from the Zhu family? You mean the Zhu family in Huacheng? Those trash are worthy of asking me to come out of retirement?" Lu Chuan sneered. "Then I understand. You are from the Lu family. It's really interesting. The Lu family sent people out quickly. I just killed Lu Xianming, and you rushed here, but it doesn't matter. Your end will be the same. Stop talking nonsense. Lu Xianming can die in your hands, which only means that he was careless or you used some secret means. In short, it is impossible for Lu Xianming to die in a head-on confrontation with you. He killed countless enemies and beheaded more than 1,000 generals on the battlefield. How can you compare with him? He shouted arrogantly. Really? It doesn't matter. I don't want to waste time talking to you. You will soon know whether that Lu Xianming deserves to die in my hands. Then, Lu Chuan walked towards the place where he was talking. Haha, do you think that as a top assassin, I will jump out and fight you one-on-one after you have discovered me so easily? It's really ridiculous. He laughed coldly. Lu Chuan asked hurriedly, are you looming? Interesting, I heard that you are the #1 assassin in Huacheng. Now you should give up this #1 position. Dream on you. The next moment, a large net suddenly fell from above Lu Chuan's head and wrapped around Lu Chuan. The speed of the net was very fast, and it almost wrapped Lu Chuan in an instant. Looming hurriedly began to pull the rope to prevent Lu Chuan from escaping. Haha, this is my unique magic weapon. It is impossible for people who are covered by this net to escape. He laughed arrogantly, as if he had already determined his victory. Lu Chuan was wrapped in the black wire net. After struggling for a while, he was unable to break free from the iron net. The bronze sword couldn't split the iron net either. Lu Chuan was like a captured prey. Seeing this, Looming smiled and grinned. The master said you were difficult to deal with, but now it seems that it's not so difficult. I just took you down. Should I say you are too useless? Or am I too strong? Hearing this, Lu Chuan just smiled disdainfully. Is it too early for you to be happy? You are right. It's too early for me to be happy. There are 3 beauties around you. I will catch them all later. You can only be trapped in the net and watch how I torture them. After saying that, he laughed triumphantly. Such a rampant guy made Lu Chuan angry. It seems that I don't need to talk nonsense with you. The next moment, Lu Chuan's whole body turned red. He began to circulate the sun god fire in his body. His body became extremely hot, causing the surrounding air to begin to distort under the high temperature. Looming noticed that something was wrong. Such a hot temperature was obviously not simple. He looked at Lu Chuan in a panic and asked, what are you doing? What are you going to do? He panicked. The temperature was still rising. It looked bad. Boom! Exclamation mark. The next moment, a ball of fire rose from Lu Chuan's body. The bright flames instantly illuminated the surroundings. The iron net on his body was soon burned red. Looming gritted his teeth and said, you can actually play with fire. So what? You can't burn through this net of heaven and earth. You will never escape today, he said very confidently, giving himself a little more confidence. However, the iron net was still melting at high temperature. Seeing this, Looming couldn't help but swallow nervously. Asshole, what did you use? Won't you be burned to death? He looked at Lu Chuan in confusion. He had been an assassin for so long, but this was the first time he saw a warrior who could control fire. After seeing that the situation was not good, Looming said nothing, directly pulled out a dagger from his waist, and rushed towards Lu Chuan. Since the Skynet can't cover it, he must rush up to finish the job himself. Swish! He rushed to Lu Chuan in an instant, holding the dagger tightly, and stabbed towards Lu Chuan's chest, looking for death. Lu Chuan shouted, and swung his arms violently. The next moment, the iron nets all over his body were instantly broken. Bang! The iron nets turned into countless fragments and shot out in the surroundings. Looming was knocked back 7 or 8 meters by this fierce impact. After quickly stabilizing his body, he threw several darts at Lu Chuan without saying a word. Lu Chuan quickly turned sideways and dodged these darts. Is this all you can do? You dare to attack me? I guess you have never died before. Looming couldn't help but swallow nervously, and he completely lost his confidence just now. He never thought that the Skynet that was directly set up would be broken so easily. If it weren't for the flames on Lu Chuan's body, he would have enough confidence that he could definitely take down the target. Now, if he, an assassin, were to fight the man head on, that would be the end of his life. As a qualified assassin, he should reduce the possibility of head-on confrontation. At the very least, he should first consume the opponent and make him seriously injured, and then he can fight head-on and defeat the opponent. But now, Lu Chuan was unscathed. This was obviously a failed assassination. The trap he set in advance had no effect at all. No matter what, you are dead today. I will not let you go. None of the enemies of the Lu family can survive in this world. You are really domineering. Let me see what you are capable of. Chapter 580 Extreme Shadow Flash. At this moment, Lu Ming was extremely cautious when facing Lu Chuan. He was very careful with every move, fearing that there would be any mistakes. Although he looked down on the ordinary people in this secular world from the bottom of his heart, he would still be more cautious after learning from the past. Moreover, as an assassin, he has always been cautious. So at this moment, when facing Lu Chuan, he would not act rashly. Come on, let me see what you are capable of. A person who once turned the world upside down in Huacheng should be stronger now, right? Lu Ming clenched the dagger in his hand, raised his hand, and pointed at Lu Chuan, saying, "You will soon appreciate my methods, and you will definitely die today. I have made countless shots, and I have never failed so far, and it is even impossible for me to be broken in your hands," he said very confidently. It seems that his past achievements have indeed made him extremely proud, and even a little arrogant. Come, let me see what your strength is. Lu Chuan pulled out the bronze sword behind him, clenched his hands, and walked slowly towards Lu Ming. At this moment, Lu Ming raised his hands and made a seal in front of his chest. After a complex seal, a black light suddenly emanated from his body. Swish. The next moment, Lu Ming's figure began to move rapidly, leaving a black after image every time he moved, which was extremely confusing. Seeing this, Lu Chuan frowned immediately. This guy's speed was really scary. In this short moment, he couldn't see the guy's moving trajectory at all. Swish. The next moment, a black shadow flashed, and Lu Ming appeared behind Lu Chuan. Ha ha ha, die, my extreme shadow flash. You can't react at all. With your reaction and speed, I'm afraid you can only be fooled by me. He shouted arrogantly, and then swung the dagger towards the back of Lu Chuan's neck. Lu Chuan turned around suddenly, swung the bronze sword in his hand directly, and the sword body blocked Lu Ming's dagger. Clang. The weapons of both sides collided fiercely, creating dazzling sparks. Seeing this, Lu Ming roared, "A mere piece of scrap copper and iron is worthy of colliding with my precious weapon. You are really overestimating yourself." However, no matter how hard he swung at the bronze sword in Lu Chuan's hand, he could not cause any substantial damage. He originally thought that his sharp dagger would cut a gap in a few strokes when it came into contact with the bronze sword, and it would be cut off directly with a few more swings. But now, after his dagger swung 5 or 6 times, the bronze sword in Lu Chuan's hand was still intact. "Damn it, where did you get this broken sword?" he said in confusion, and then quickly retreated and pulled away. Although he came behind Lu Chuan in the first time and took the initiative to attack, but Lu Chuan reacted in time, turned around and blocked several times in a row, and he did not cause any damage at all. The perfect wave of initiative was directly beaten away, which gave Lu Ming a headache. At this moment, he began to get nervous. The abandoned child of the family in front of him looked quite unusual. Those who can make it from the secular world to the Kunlun domain are indeed not simple, but so what? You are just struggling at the moment of death. He still rushed towards Lu Chuan with great confidence. Swish. The next moment, he once again activated the martial arts skill Extreme Shadow Flash, turning himself into a black afterimage, and quickly approached Lu Chuan at an astonishing speed by jumping back and forth. Seeing this, Lu Chuan knew that this guy was only outstanding in speed, and at most, he had some achievements in hiding his body. In other aspects, he was not a little bit worse, especially his attack power, which was very poor. Lu Chuan could hardly feel any force when he blocked the knives. The power gap was still quite large. After rushing to Lu Chuan again, Lu Ming swung the dagger without hesitation. At this moment, Lu Chuan saw that his dagger flashed with a cold light, and the whole dagger became very sharp, and Lu Ming's whole body looked full of fierce momentum. Seeing this, Lu Chuan quickly stepped back a few steps, then swung his bronze sword upwards to block Lu Ming's dagger. Clang! Exclamation mark. The weapons collided, and dazzling sparks burst out again. Then, Lu Chuan opened his immortal golden pupils, and his dark golden pupils stared at Lu Ming. Buzz. The next moment, Lu Ming felt a sharp pain in his brain, mixed with bursts of buzzing. which made him headache and uncomfortable all over. He covered his forehead and stepped back several steps, looking up at Lu Chuan in disbelief. Mental attack. You bastard have a lot of tricks. He gritted his teeth and gradually endured the severe headache. Seeing this, Lu Chuan knew that the immortal golden pupils would cause limited damage to him. It seems that he still has to rely on force to win. Then, Lu Chuan raised his right hand, and the sun god fire in his palm rose and appeared on his palm. Seeing this, Lu Ming suddenly became nervous, stepped back several steps, and looked at Lu Chuan vigilantly. Even from 5 or 6 meters away, he could feel the terrifying high temperature contained in the flame. He couldn't imagine how miserable his fate would be if he was attacked by this flame. He is indeed a difficult character. There is indeed a reason why Lu Xianming died in your hands. He became serious. However, I want to defend my title of the #1 assassin here, and I will not let you go. Seeing this, Lu Chuan smiled triumphantly. That's just what I want. Then come on, let me see what other cards you have. Boom. Lu Chuan swung his right hand, and the sun god fire in his palm burst into a ball of fire, attacking Lu Ming. Lu Ming saw the bright fireball coming towards him, and without saying a word, he quickly retreated to avoid it, fearing that he would be affected by the fireball. Although your flame is very powerful, to be honest, no matter how powerful it is, if it can't attack me, what use can it have? Swish. Without saying a word, his figure flashed again, and almost instantly, he came behind Lu Chuan again. This time, he seemed to have made up his mind, and flew directly towards Lu Chuan, taking out the dagger with both hands at the same time, and stabbed towards Lu Chuan's body. At this moment, Lu Chuan's entire back suddenly turned red, and a scorching heat came over him. The next moment, a ball of fire rose on Lu Chuan's back. Seeing this, Lu Ming's eyes widened instantly. What? Your back can also catch fire? He said in disbelief, and he never expected that, even if he attacked from behind, he would still be hurt by the fire. He just thought that Lu Chuan summoned the fire with his hands, but he didn't expect that the fire was in his body, and it was completely fine to release it from anywhere. Boom! Exclamation mark. The flames burned fiercely, and Lu Chuan's entire back was covered with flames. Lu Ming couldn't retract his hand in time, and was directly affected by the flames. He quickly controlled his body, and rushed to the side. However, even so, one of his left hands was also burned by the flames. Almost instantly, his left hand and forearm were burned black, and turned into a pile of charcoal. Chapter 581 Lu Family Assassin. One of Lu Ming's left hands was burned by the flames, and turned into ashes. Lu Ming fell to the ground, and hugged his left arm. His entire left hand and half of his forearm were burned into ashes. He lay on the ground, and clenched his teeth. At this moment, he had no time to scream or get angry. He had to turn around, and flee from here without hesitation to save his life. Otherwise, he would die here. After losing one hand, his fighting ability has been greatly reduced. If he continues to stay here, the consequences will be disastrous. He quickly got up, and rushed to the bamboo forest next to him. He launched the martial arts extreme shadow flash again, and his figure disappeared instantly, and rushed into the bamboo forest. Almost in an instant, he disappeared from the spot, and fled from here. Seeing this, Lu Chuan just sneered, and did not intend to chase him. Although this guy's frontal combat ability is average, his speed is still amazing. If he chases him all the way, who knows if he will have other traps set in advance. So, let him escape for the time being. After all, one of that guy's hands was crippled, and he probably wouldn't have any more ideas for a while. However, Lu Chuan still had to be careful and alert. As an assassin killer, he didn't just use daggers and force to fight. This kind of people will have a lot of dirty tricks, so as long as they don't die, they need to be extra careful and alert. Lu Chuan patted the dust off his body, and prepared to continue looking for the spiritual bamboo. After driving Lu Ming away, Lu Chuan continued to search in the bamboo forest. He felt that Lu Ming would not leave directly, but would continue to stay in Huacheng. From the brief contact just now, Lu Chuan could feel that this guy was arrogant, and not the kind of person who would easily admit defeat. So after he was defeated this time, he would definitely go back to recuperate and wait for the next opportunity. Lu Chuan would not worry too much. As long as he was well prepared, He would not be afraid of this guy at all. In the dark bamboo forest, after searching back and forth for a while, Huakayan Wu, Guzayadorao and Guzayadasang came over. Luchuan, I just heard a sound of fighting here. Is there any accident? Guzayadorao hurried over and came to Luchuan. Luchuan turned around and looked at Guzayadorao and hurriedly said, no accident, I just met an assassin who wanted to attack me. Guzayadaorao's eyes widened immediately. Who is so brave that he actually chose to fight here? Where is that person? Are you not injured? Guzayadorao looked at Luchuan with a worried face. I'm definitely not injured, but I broke one of that guy's hands, and he has already escaped. Guzayadorao nodded slightly. That's good. With one of his hands broken, I'm afraid he won't dare to get it back for a while. Luchuan shook his head slightly. I think this guy will attack me again when he finds a chance. Huakayan Wu and Guzayadorao both looked at Luchuan curiously. Why? Because he is from the Lu family. His name is Luming. He has a very high status in the field of assassins, and he cannot tolerate his own failure. Hearing this, Guzayadorao looked at Huakayan Wu and asked, isn't this Luming the Luming you mentioned during the day? Huakayan Wu's face condensed, nodded slightly, and said, yes, it must be him. I didn't expect that he would return to Huacheng. This time, his target is you. Is this the so-called number one assassin? It seems that his strength is average. Luchuan said disapprovingly. Huakayan Wu looked heavy-faced and said slowly, perhaps to you, his strength is very ordinary, but to Huacheng, it was a nightmare that we don't want to go back to. He is extremely fast and kills people invisibly. Many people died under his knife before they could see what he looked like. At that time, he was in Huacheng and killed whoever he wanted. I didn't expect that he would become so vulnerable here with you. Huakayan Wu looked at Luchuan in surprise. She couldn't even see any wounds on Luchuan's body. He defeated Luming almost without any injuries and even crippled one of his hands. The difference in strength was really a bit big. Forget about him. Even if he comes 100 times, he will not be my opponent. Now let's continue to look for the spiritual bamboo. After Luchuan finished speaking, he was ready to turn around and continue looking. As soon as he turned around, he saw Guzayadasang carefully observing a thin bamboo. She looked particularly serious and careful when observing. When someone called her name next to her, she was stunned for a moment before she came to her senses. Guzayadasang, did you find anything? Guzayadorao walked over. Guzayadasang looked back at Guzayadorao and said, sister, this seems to be the spiritual bamboo. It looks very special. Hearing this, several people hurried over and observed carefully and found that the bamboo really had a faint blue fluorescence. The most important thing is that when they get close to the bamboo, they can feel the faint spiritual energy emanating from the bamboo. Obviously, this is the spiritual bamboo. Huakayan Wu looked at the three of them and said with a smile, everyone, I didn't expect that we were so lucky today. We actually found both materials. Now let's go back. Luchuan nodded slightly, and then the four of them started to go home. The road was not easy to walk at night. After getting on the carriage, the oil lamp hanging on the carriage could only provide a weak light. When passing the post station, Huakayan Wu looked at the entrance of the post station in surprise. There were corpses everywhere at the entrance, and Huacheng sent several errands here to investigate and deal with it. This must be Luming's masterpiece. This bastard is really murderous and has no humanity at all. Huakayan Wu said hatefully. The carriage continued on its way, and when it arrived at Huacheng, it was almost midnight. At the same time, in the bamboo forest, Luming fled in a panic and fled to Zhao Changjin. Zhao Changjin found a stone to sit down and waited for Luming to come back. He still remembered what Luming said when he left, asking him to wait here. Luming's figure gradually emerged from the darkness and walked towards Zhao Changjin. Seeing this, Zhao Changjin quickly stood up and walked towards Luming. Senior, how is the situation? Did you succeed? After waiting for a long time, he was so restless that he wanted to know the answer immediately. But soon, Zhao Changjin saw Luming's left hand, and when he saw the burnt left hand, his eyes widened. Senior, your left hand? That bastard crippled my left hand. I can't forgive him. I will use his life to pay for the loss of my arm. Lu Ming said viciously. His tone was full of hostility, and his whole body was full of murderous aura, which made Zhao Changjin feel a little scared. Who did it? Hua Kai and Wu shouldn't be able to beat you, right? He asked in confusion. Lu Ming looked at Zhao Changjin and asked in bewilderment, what are you talking about? What Hua Kai and Wu? Didn't you say that your target for assassination today is Hua Kai and Wu? When did I say that? My target is Lu Chuan. Chapter 582 Cheyenne Woman Elder. In the bamboo forest, Zhao Changjin looked at Lu Ming in front of him and felt a little confused for a moment. What? Lu Chuan? Who is Lu Chuan? Think about it carefully. The person you met when you came to the bamboo forest today. Zhao Changjin was stunned for a moment. After frowning and thinking seriously for a moment, he suddenly remembered something. When he met Hua Kai and Wu today, there was only one man among the people in front of him. That man might be Lu Chuan. The person you want to kill is that one. Is he strong? Lu Ming nodded slightly. He is very strong and has many means. I'm mainly lost because I don't understand my opponent. Give me another chance. I will definitely take his head. But now, I have lost one hand. I'm afraid it will be much more difficult. But no matter what, I have to kill him. Otherwise I will not be ashamed to go back. He gritted his teeth and made up his mind. No matter what, he must complete the task. If he escapes back in a mess, it will be too embarrassing. But, you couldn't beat him when you had both hands. And now that you've lost one hand, aren't you even more of a match? Lu Ming looked up and glared at him. Although this made him feel a little uncomfortable, he thought about it and realized that this was not completely unreasonable. He sighed helplessly, but I still have a way. In Huacheng, I still have some influence. When I go back and unite a few forces, we can work together to deal with this guy. I will definitely find a chance to kill him, he said with certainty. When he was in Huacheng, he established a very strong prestige and sent many dignitaries who did not support the Lu family to the west. Therefore, when he returned to Huacheng, many powerful families would listen to his orders. Wait, in Huacheng, my strength is stronger than yours. Lu Ming gritted his teeth and said, looking down at his lost left hand, his heart filled with resentment. On the other side, it was already late at night when Lu Chuan and his friends returned to the Hua family mansion. Hua Tao and a few people greeted them at the door. When Hua Tao learned that they had obtained the second material, the spiritual bamboo, he immediately laughed excitedly and praised Lu Chuan repeatedly. Lu Chuan just exchanged a few pleasantries and went back to the study to sleep. After returning to the room, Lu Chuan fell asleep. When he woke up the next day, it was already past 9 in the morning. After getting up and washing, Lu Chuan went to the yard to have breakfast. Today, Huacheng is even more undercurrent. Not only did Lu Ming from the Lu family arrive in Huacheng, but another special person also came to Huacheng. At this time, at the gate of the Zhu family's mansion, Zhu Shenghua and the Zhu family stood at the gate in a row, looking at the end of the street with expectation. After a while, a carriage drove through the street. Zhu Shenghua's face immediately showed an excited smile. Soon, the carriage drove to the gate of the mansion, and Zhu Shenghua looked at the carriage with respect. Then, an old man in a white robe came down and walked towards Zhu Shenghua and the others. The old man in a white robe who appeared in front of him was the third elder of Cheyenne Woman. After he arrived, everyone in the Zhu family bowed and shouted to him respectfully, "Welcome the third elder of Cheyenne Wu sect, Huang Yuking, to the Zhu family. Everyone in the Zhu family has been waiting for you for a long time." Huang Yuking walked in front of Zhu Shenghua with a faint smile on his face. "Master of the Zhu family, let's go in and talk." Zhu Shenghua lowered his head and did not dare to look up at Elder Huang. He said in a deep voice, "No problem, this way." Then, everyone returned to the Zhu family mansion together. After coming to the meeting hall, Zhu Shenghua respectfully took Huang Yuking to the main seat. "Elder Huang is here. We are not able to prepare in time. It is really sorry. Why don't I hold a celebration banquet for you to welcome your arrival? How about it?" Huang Yuking shook his hand and said, "Don't bother. I came here first to ask about my apprentice's situation. Second, I want to ask about the whereabouts of the branches of the sacred tree." Hearing this, Zhu Shenghua swallowed nervously. "Your disciple Bai Yi, he is gone now." Huang Yuking asked, "Gone? What do you mean? Explain clearly, don't fool me, can't my disciple be a big shot in this flower city? Beiyi, he is dead. Zhu Shenghua said in a deep voice, lowering his head and not daring to look up at Huang Yuking. After hearing this, Huang Yuking's old face became gloomy. He gritted his teeth and said in a concentrated voice, are you serious? My disciple Beiyi died here? In this mere flower city? How many people can be his opponent? Zhu Shenghua trembled with nervousness, still did not dare to look up at Huang Yuking. He could feel a fierce murderous aura from Huang Yuking, which made him shudder. The man who killed him is named Lu Chuan, the one who holds the branch of the sacred tree. Huang Yuking's face turned ugly. I heard that this person grew up in the secular world, and his martial arts practice is not too superb. He should be a half-baked one. Why, my apprentice Beiyi, a leader in Cheyenne Wu sect, would lose to such a person? Zhu Shenghua was asked this question, and he didn't know how to answer for a while. It's just that the guy named Lu Chuan, his strength is really too strong, and he definitely killed Beiyi with hard power. Huang Yuking sighed and slapped the armrest of the chair angrily. Are you serious? If he used some tricks, or played some tricks, then I might feel better. This is true. He really killed Beiyi head on. After hearing this, Huang Yuking sighed thoroughly, feeling a little disappointed. As a master, he would naturally be very unhappy that his apprentice was killed. But soon, this unhappiness turned into anger. Where is this bastard named Lu Chuan? I'm going to kill him to avenge my apprentice, and I have to take the branch from him back myself. Hearing this, Zhu Shenghua immediately became active. As long as they can get the branch from Lu Chuan, their Zhu family will still have a chance to surpass the Hua family and become the top leader of Huacheng. This guy named Lu Chuan is now in the Hua family mansion. As long as we look for him, we will definitely find him. Huang Yuking said angrily, Hua family? This bastard is helping the Hua family. In this case, I will take care of the Hua family as well. He stood up and walked out angrily, wishing that the anger in his heart could be vented right now. Seeing him so angry, Zhu Shenghua was immediately happy. If he directly destroyed the Hua family, it would save trouble and time, and their Zhu family would immediately become the #1 family in Huacheng. Huang Yuking was just about to walk out of the gate of the meeting hall when suddenly a figure blocked his way. Who is it? I'm Luming, from the Lu family. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 583. The next material. As soon as he went out, Cheyenne Wu sect elder Huang Yuking bumped into Luming. Luming stood in front of him, with his hands behind his back, and asked in a cold tone, why are you in a hurry to go out? What are you going to do? Huang Yuking looked at Luming in front of him, and couldn't help but sighed. Luming, I have heard of your name for a long time, but I didn't expect to see you in person today. I'm going out now, to go to the Hua family, to settle accounts with that bastard named Lu Chuan. That guy killed my apprentice, and I will never forgive him. Huang Yuking said angrily, clenching his fists, and veins on the back of his hands bulged. However, Luming shook his head slightly and said, if you go there Ashley, you will not be able to kill Lu Chuan. It is even possible that he will trick you. Huang Yuking immediately became dissatisfied. Why do you say that? I'm the third elder of Cheyenne Wu sect. With my strength, it will be easy for me to defeat a beginner from the secular world, isn't it? Luming sneered. So what if he is an elder of Cheyenne Wu sect? If you underestimate that guy, you will suffer a great loss. Don't talk nonsense. You haven't fought with him. What right do you have to say such things? I'll go over and kill him later, and then you will naturally know who is the boss between me and that bastard in Kunlun domain. Luming shook his head slightly, smiled helplessly and said, I have fought with him, so I definitely know my opponent better than you. Hearing this, Huang Yuking frowned and looked at Luming seriously. You fought him last night. Where did you fight? What was the result? Luming sighed. Last night in the bamboo forest of Fanhua Valley, I set a trap to ambush him, but that bastard has a special flame in his body, which is too powerful. Not only did he break my net, he even injured me. After saying that, he raised his left hand and showed it to Huang Yuking. When Huang Yuking saw Lu Ming's left hand, he was shocked and took 2 steps back. Did that guy do this? Huang Yuking pointed at his half left arm and asked in disbelief. Zhu Shenghua and others who followed behind also whispered to each other and expressed their surprise. Lu Ming shrugged helplessly. That's right, the damn bastard broke my left hand. I will definitely make him pay with his life. If I didn't know my opponent in the beginning and didn't know he had the ability to control fire, I wouldn't have miscalculated. Logically speaking, if my net traps the enemy, he is basically dead. But this guy is really extraordinary. He looked up at Huang Yuking with a frown and a heavy expression. So, if you want to fight him in a one-on-one duel, it's not easy to say that you will win for sure. Huang Yuking looked at Lu Ming and asked, I remember that you haven't broken through to the Martial Emperor realm yet? From just now until now, I haven't felt the Martial Emperor's aura on you. Lu Ming nodded helplessly. Yes, I haven't broken through to the Martial Emperor realm yet, but with my assassination skills, I don't need the strength of the Martial Emperor realm. It's enough. Huang Yuking nodded slightly. I know your assassination ability, but after all, you are fighting against Lu Chuan head on. The gap between the Martial Emperor realm and the Martial King realm is quite exaggerated. Your defeat to him doesn't mean that I will lose to him. After speaking, Huang Yuking planned to continue moving forward and go out to find Lu Chuan. He was eager to avenge his apprentice, and he couldn't wait any longer. Lu Ming just said in a deep voice, think it over. If you cooperate with me, we can kill the enemy more easily. If you are so reckless to fight that guy alone, you are likely to get into trouble. Huang Yuking looked back at Lu Ming and said disdainfully, what kind of accident? I have the strength of the 2nd rank of the Martial Emperor realm. Why would I be afraid of him? You may not know that before me. Lu Xianming, a general of the Lu family, led his troops to Ziyao City to capture Lu Chuan. However, where did he die? He died at the hands of Lu Chuan. After hearing this, Huang Yuking took a breath of cold air, paused, and stood still. Are you serious? Absolutely true. As a member of the Lu family, would I joke with you like this? Think it over. If you go to the meeting alone, you will probably die even more miserably. At this moment, Huang Yuking calmed down completely, and his eagerness to avenge his disciple gradually eased. He turned around and walked towards Lu Ming. Let's talk about your ideas. Then, Huang Yuking followed Lu Ming back to the Zhu family mansion. The next day, in the Hua family mansion, after Lu Chuan finished his breakfast, he prepared to set out again to look for the next material. In the front yard, Hua Qianwu found Lu Chuan and asked, are you ready? Let's go out and look for the Wanji flower. Do you know where to find this material? Lu Chuan looked at Hua Qianwu and asked, I don't know yet, but I heard that someone saw a strange bird in a sea of flowers in the southwest of the Flower Valley. It is said that the flower of all worlds grows on the head of that bird. Lu Chuan frowned slightly. So strange. Is this news true? Hua Qianwu shrugged. If you don't go and see it yourself, you won't know if it's true. Let's go. Let's go to the Flower Valley and take a look. Maybe we'll be lucky enough to see it. Okay, then let's go and take a look. Lu Chuan looked at Gu Xiaorao and Gu Xiaorao sang beside him. Do you two have anything else to prepare? Gu Xiaorao shook her head slightly. Let's set off directly. There's nothing to prepare, but you still have to be careful of Lu Ming. In case he lurks in the Flower Valley and attacks you again, you must find a way to kill him. Lu Chuan nodded and said, of course, if that guy doesn't give up, I will never let him go. Just as the 4 of them were preparing to set off again, a servant hurriedly walked towards them. Miss, there was news just now that the 3rd elder of Xianwu sect arrived in Huacheng and visited the Zhu family first. He is now staying at the Zhu family. I don't know what his purpose is. Hearing this, Hua Qianwu frowned slightly and asked hurriedly, apart from that, is there any other news? Nothing else. The Zhu family didn't reveal too much. Hua Qianwu hurriedly looked at Lu Chuan and said, it is obvious that the guy came for Bai Yi. If he knew that Bai Yi was dead, he would never let you go. Lu Chuan supported his waist with both hands and said disapprovingly, then let him come. Am I afraid of him? After Gu Xiaorao thought about it seriously, she was definitely a little strange. If he came to find his apprentice, then when he knew that his apprentice was dead, shouldn't he come directly for revenge? As an elder of Xianwu sect, can he still hold back this anger? He hasn't come here until now. Something must have happened. Lu Chuan and Hua Qianwu both felt that Gu Xiaorao's analysis made sense. Chapter 584. Bird of All Worlds. It has been a day since Huang Yuking, the third elder of Xianwu sect, came to Hua Cheng, but he still did not come to the Hua family mansion to seek revenge on Lu Chuan. This made Lu Chuan and the others feel strange. Could this third elder be so patient? Lu Chuan did not think too much about it. No matter why he chose to be patient, it doesn't matter. We just need to do our own thing. Then, they set out and went to Fanhua Valley again to look for Wanji flower. After getting on the carriage of the Hua family, they began to rush out of the city. After leaving the city, they rushed all the way to Fanhua Valley, almost without any preparation to stop. What's the situation of the post station outside Fanhua Valley now? Lu Chuan looked at Hua Qianwu and asked. It was still a bit inconvenient to lack a place to rest halfway. It should be almost restored. After all, the post station is very important and cannot be empty for too long. In addition, the city has also issued a wanted notice to find the murderer. Lu Chuan nodded slightly. Hua Qianwu looked at the driver and said, Master, please stop at the post station. I want to see someone first. The driver said quickly, okay, no problem. Did you make an appointment with someone at the post station? Lu Chuan asked curiously. Yes, it's the person who leaked the information to me. He is also a professional bird catcher who can help us catch the bird of all worlds. That's good. With a professional helper, things will be much easier. Lu Chuan continued. Otherwise, we amateurs may not be able to do it. Hearing this, Gu Xiaosang said dissatisfiedly, who is amateur? I used to catch birds every day when I was a child. With your little ability, you can catch a few sparrows, but it's useless for dealing with those rare and exotic animals. Gu Xiaorao looked at Gu Xiaosang and said, Sister, don't you believe in my skills? I grew up with you. Don't I know what skills you have? Forget it. Gu Xiaosang pouted and sat on the chair with a little dissatisfaction. Hua Qianwu smiled and said, we are almost at the post station. The carriage continued to move forward for more than 10 minutes and finally stopped at the entrance of the post station again. This time, the post station was almost brand new. Not only did they change a group of people, but even the tables and chairs inside were all replaced. There was just a slight smell of blood in the air, but apart from that, it was impossible to tell that there had been a massacre here yesterday. After Lu Chuan walked into the post station, everyone turned their heads to look over. At this time, everyone in the post station was suspicious. Whenever someone came in, they would turn their heads and look carefully, fearing that the person who came in was the murderer from yesterday. The people here seemed to be in a low mood, and they didn't communicate much. They just hurriedly finished their food and quickly got up and walked out of the post station. The shopkeeper of the post station stood in front of the counter, fiddling with an abacus, and his face was not looking good. Boss, we are here to find someone. The boss looked up at Hua Qianwu and finally smiled on his face full of worries. Miss Hua, we are so lucky to have you visit our post station. Who are you looking for? Wonking. The boss nodded slightly, turned and looked at the waiter in the store. Go upstairs and call Wonking down. The waiter nodded and turned and went upstairs to find someone. Soon, he came down with a burly young man. He had an honest face, thick eyebrows and big eyes. He walked towards Hua Qianwu quickly, clasped his hands and bowed slightly. Hello, Miss Hua, I'm Wonking. Please give me your advice. You said that you saw the Wanji bad staying in the Flower Valley, right? Hua Qianwu asked. That's right. The bird of all worlds is a very special bird. It coexists with the exotic plant, the flower of all worlds, and uses each other's power. The bird of all worlds can fly across multiple worlds and has a very special aura. Many top noble families choose to use the bird of all worlds to convey information. Hua Qianwu nodded slightly. It seems that you understand it very well. Now take us in to catch the bird of all worlds. Wonking smiled slightly. No problem. Although the bird of all worlds is not rare, it still takes a lot of effort to catch it. If you catch it, you still need to spend a lot of energy to tame it and use it for work. After that, Wonking walked out of the post station. Are these three your friends? Wonking looked at Lu Chuan. Yes, I'm her friend. My name is Lu Chuan. My name is Guzayadorao, and this is my sister Guzayada-sang. Guzayadorao continued to introduce. Won King nodded slightly. You are both a handsome man and a beautiful woman. You are indeed Miss Hua's friends. Come with me into the mountains. The last time I saw the Wanji Bad was on Teohu Ridge. The scenery there is a little worse now. Not as magnificent as the spring when peach blossoms are everywhere. But this also has its advantages. That is, it is easier to find the target. Then, under the leadership of Won King, several people began to go deep into the Flower Valley. Along the way, Won King talked incessantly. It was obvious that he was very familiar with this place. Even Huakayan Wu, who grew up here, knew less about this Flower Valley than he did. After going deep into the mountains, walking in the flowers all over the mountains, they soon came to Teohu Ridge. There were peach trees planted here, but there was no peach blossom, only dense branches. We are here, this is it, why don't we disperse and look for it, and if we find it, we will regroup. After Won King finished speaking, he looked at Huakayan Wu. Huakayan Wu nodded slightly and said, then let's look for it separately, so that the efficiency will be higher. Then several people directly searched separately. Guzayada-sang searched for the traces of the Wanji bird in the peach forest, but was soon attracted by other small animals. Guzayadorao searched meticulously. Lu Chuan shuttled between the trees and began to observe the surroundings carefully. Won King followed Lu Chuan and asked, I think you are not from Kunlun domain, right? Yes, I'm from the secular world. Really? I just heard that I have never been to the secular world. I heard that it is a completely different world, a world that we can hardly imagine. Lu Chuan shrugged and said with a smile, it is also difficult for them to imagine that there is a world called Kunlun domain in this world. Well, what you said makes sense. Lu Chuan looked back at Won King and asked, do you know what happened in the post station yesterday? I know, a bloody massacre, many people died, and it is said that the murderer is still at large. It is really worrying. When I came to the post station today, I was terrified. After walking a few steps forward, Won King suddenly stopped in place. Lu Chuan, stand still. Hearing this, Lu Chuan stopped. What's going on? Yes, that's right, behind you, the bird of all worlds is right there. Don't look back, be careful not to disturb the bird of all worlds. Lu Chuan listened to his order and stood still. However, what appeared behind Lu Chuan was not the bird of all worlds. Chapter 585, Flower Forest Battle. Won King looked at Lu Chuan, raised his hands, and said carefully, don't move. The bird of all worlds is very close to you. If you accidentally scare it, it will take a lot of time to find it next time. Lu Chuan listened to him and stood still. Okay, move over here. You are too close to the bird of all worlds. It is on a branch on the left behind you. Here, Lu Chuan asked. Yes, this way. Lu Chuan moved one step to the side. Won King licked his lips, a little nervous, and his hands trembled. Lu Chuan thought, since he is a professional bird catcher, he shouldn't be so nervous, just because he saw the bird of all worlds. He looked like a novice. Okay, take 3 more steps over here, and then it will be fine. Leave the rest to me, and you don't have to worry about anything. Lu Chuan was skeptical, but still moved in the direction he indicated. He took 2 steps, and just as he was about to take the 3rd step, Lu Chuan suddenly frowned. He stared at Won King's pupils seriously. From the reflection of his eyes, he vaguely saw that there seemed to be a figure behind him. He couldn't see clearly, so he quickly opened the immortal golden pupil. After his eyes were strengthened, he stared at Won King seriously. At this time, Won King was stared at by Lu Chuan with the immortal golden pupil, and his hair stood on end, and he felt uncomfortable all over. Any questions? You lean over here now, and leave the rest to me. Believe me, I'm a professional. He said seriously. No, I won't take another step over here. Won King's forehead suddenly broke out in cold sweat, and he stood there and looked at Lu Chuan nervously. Why? Because you lied to me. Won King swallowed his saliva, took 2 steps back, and smiled awkwardly. Lu Chuan, this is the first time I met you. Why should I lie to you? It's not good for me. Not to mention, you are Huakayan Wu's friend. How dare I? Well, then get over here. Lu Chuan rushed forward quickly, raised his hand to grab Won King's neck, and threw him behind him. Won King was thrown heavily into the bushes nearby. With a thud, the bushes collapsed, and Won King fell directly into them. Ah! The next moment, a shrill scream was heard, which was piercing to the ears. Lu Chuan walked forward and looked into the pit. He was shocked to see that Won King's body was pierced by dense spikes, and blood instantly splattered all over the place. He himself died here after a scream. Lu Chuan looked down at Won King's body with a frown. Lu Ming, you bastard, you still don't give up and actually want to attack me. This time, no matter where you escape, I will hunt you down to death. Lu Chuan looked up and around, and the figure that had just appeared behind him had disappeared. Then, an old man in a white robe slowly walked out. Lu Chuan, do you know who I am? Lu Chuan turned his head quickly and saw that it was a strange old man. He asked, who are you? Where is Lu Ming? I'm the third elder of Cheyenne Wu sect, Huang Yuking. So it's you. I heard about your coming to Hua Cheng early in the morning. I was wondering why you didn't attack me directly. I didn't expect that you joined forces with Lu Ming to attack me together. Lu Chuan shook his head slightly. It's a pity that your methods are too crude and have no effect at all. I didn't expect you to be so thoughtful. You have observed this. However, although the trap didn't work, you will definitely die today. I will never let you go. Huang Yuking said viciously, and at the same time, raised his right hand and showed his palm. In the palm, a wave of energy was constantly changing. Next, you have to pay for my apprentice's life. Also, hand over the branch of the sacred tree on you. Are you mortals worthy of holding the branch of the sacred tree? It's simply a defilement. He shouted angrily, not only angry about the death of his apprentice, but also angry that Lu Chuan held the branch of the sacred tree and refused to hand it over. Why should the branch of the sacred tree be handed over to you? Do you deserve it? Humph. You are just an ordinary person in the secular world, and you are worthy of holding such a sacred object? You are not worthy of it at all from your birth. Without saying a word, he rushed towards Lu Chuan. Swish. Although he was old, his body movements were quite agile, and his steps were sharper than those of a 17 or 18-year-old boy. Almost in an instant, he rushed in and came to Lu Chuan. Then, he slapped Lu Chuan with a palm. Lu Chuan was also unceremonious. You are old and disrespectful, so don't blame me for bullying the elderly. Swish. Lu Chuan punched Huang Yuking in the palm. Bang. A huge force was transmitted to his palm. After Huang Yuking felt this force, he quickly stepped back and pulled away. He suddenly raised his head and looked at Lu Chuan with horror. You are so powerful at such a young age. You really can't be underestimated. No wonder Lu Ming lost a hand here. Lu Chuan sneered. Sure enough, that idiot found you. It's a pity that his plan was too poor. It's ridiculous to try to trick me with this method. Won King was definitely bribed by Lu Ming in advance, but this method was too ordinary. Lu Chuan easily saw through the trick. Without the trap set by Lu Ming, I can still kill you. By the way, let me remind you that Lu Ming is hiding in the dark and may launch a sneak attack on you at any time. You have to be careful. Huang Yuking smiled triumphantly. He hoped to distract Lu Chuan's attention and gain the upper hand in a head-on battle. Lu Chuan glanced around and did not see Lu Ming. This guy's hiding well enough. If two people attack together, one in the open and one in the dark, it will be difficult to fight. It seems that it will be another tough battle. In this case, I can't be careless. In this case, I won't waste time with you here. Whoosh. A ball of fire appeared on Lu Chuan's right hand. I have heard from Lu Ming that you can control fire, but it's just a trick. Watch me show you your true form. Without saying a word, he rushed towards Lu Chuan again. This time, he burst out with a fierce martial emperor aura, shaking the surrounding fallen leaves. Swish. He passed through the fallen leaves and came to Lu Chuan in an instant. Then, he stretched out his right palm, and a layer of pale yellow fierce momentum covered the whole palm. Go to hell. He roared and hit Lu Chuan's chest. Lu Chuan didn't hesitate and punched him directly in the palm. The fist with the sun god fire hit Huang Yuking's palm. Almost instantly, Huang Yuking's expression became ferocious. Without saying a word, he retreated more than 10 meters away and quickly distanced himself. He raised his right hand and saw that his palm had been burned red and blood was constantly oozing out. What the hell is this fire? Chapter 586, Fierce Palm Technique. Huang Yuqing looked down at his palm. Blood was constantly oozing out. The whole body was red, like a suckling pig that was about to be roasted. He clenched his teeth and glared at Lu Chuan. What on earth did you do? This flame is extraordinary. If it was an ordinary flame, his strong body in the martial emperor realm would be able to withstand it for a long time. And just at that moment, ordinary flames would never cause such damage to him. So he felt that this fire was very wrong and very strange. Of course, the strangest thing was that this flame could actually flow out of Lu Chuan's body, which was special enough. Isn't your palm method very powerful? Then continue to show your hands and let me see how strong you are. The third elder of Xian Wu sect is considered to be the top combat force of Xian Wu sect. If you die in my hands, it proves that your Xian Wu sect is nothing but this. Hearing Lu Chuan's words, Huang Yuqing clenched his teeth and felt infinite resentment in his heart. Dare to insult Xian Wu sect, I will make you pay the price. The next moment, he rushed towards Lu Chuan. Do you think I can't deal with you? Take my palm. He raised his right palm again and hit Lu Chuan. However, this time, the distance between the two was a full 5 or 6 meters. At this distance, it was impossible to attack Lu Chuan. But Lu Chuan still didn't dare to be careless and quickly raised his hand to prepare for defense. The next moment, as expected, Huang Yuqing's right palm shot out a fierce momentum and it quickly attacked Lu Chuan. Swish! A sound of breaking through the air sounded, causing the surrounding fallen leaves to fly in disorder and attack Lu Chuan. Lu Chuan didn't say anything and directly raised his arms to block this momentum. Bang! Exclamation mark. The strong palm wind hit Lu Chuan's arms, and the strong force made Lu Chuan feel numb in his arms and his skin a little painful. Lu Chuan was pushed back a few steps by this momentum before he stood firm. Huang Yuqing smiled smugly when he saw this. Haha, it seems that my sky-breaking palm is still very easy to deal with you. I beat you back in one blow. I'm afraid that the raging fire on your body will never touch me again. Lu Ming just didn't understand your characteristics, so he accidentally lost to you. Now that I know your situation, my fight with you will be absolutely overwhelming. After he finished his analysis, he raised his hand again and slapped Lu Chuan continuously. Boom. Boom. Several consecutive palm winds came, with a series of piercing sounds of breaking through the air, and instantly hit Lu Chuan. Lu Chuan was hit by the sky-breaking palm several times in a row, and was directly knocked back more than 10 meters away. The characteristics of this sky-breaking palm skill are extremely fast speed, long distance, and it is not easy to be detected by sight, and can only be felt. So it is difficult for Lu Chuan to dodge such an attack. He raised his hand and touched his chest, and bruises appeared on his chest, making him look a little ugly. Ha ha ha. You are nothing but that. You can't dodge my attack at all. If I use it a few more times, you will lose. He laughed arrogantly and triumphantly, his face showing uncontrollable joy. Lu Chuan circulated the 9 heavens mysterious fire in his body to repair the damage in his body. Almost in an instant, he recovered as before. The damage caused by Huang Yuqing was very weak. For Lu Chuan, it was still very easy to resist these palms. However, the characteristic of his air-breaking palm is that it can be used quickly and can attack the enemy from a distance. Now this guy doesn't dare to fight Lu Chuan in close combat at all, and only dares to attack from a distance. This is hardly a trouble for Lu Chuan. Lu Chuan rushed directly towards Huang Yuqing without saying a word. Swish! Lu Chuan's figure flashed and rushed towards the other party quickly. At this time, Huang Yuqing saw Lu Chuan's figure rushing towards him as fast as a tiger, and he quickly began to retreat, trying to distance himself from Lu Chuan. Why are you scared? Aren't you an elder of Xian Wu sect? In your eyes, am I not an inferior person from the secular world? Why are you scared now? You don't dare to fight me at close range. Are you still worthy of being a warrior? Huang Yuqing's face suddenly turned red with shame, and he quickly retorted, don't shout, wait until I catch you later, and you will naturally not be stubborn anymore. Now you are just trying to provoke me to reveal my flaws. As long as I keep a distance, I don't see what you can do to me. He retreated several steps in succession, but he was surprised to find that Lu Chuan's speed was not slow at all, and he was about to rush to him. Huang Yuqing did not hesitate. turned around and fled, and the peach tree that appeared in front of him was smashed by him one palm after another, and he fled quickly. But when he turned around, he could still see Lu Chuan chasing him closely, and he shouted in panic, "Lu Ming, how long are you going to watch the show? Help me, otherwise, you will die sooner or later." He roared angrily, then turned back to look at Lu Chuan, shouting, "Don't be complacent. If it weren't for the fire in your body, would I be afraid of you? In close combat, have I ever been afraid of anyone?" At this moment, Lu Chuan suddenly stopped, and he suddenly realized that there was a pair of eyes staring at him in the dark. Being stared at by this murderous gaze made Lu Chuan feel uncomfortable, but he still turned his head suddenly and vaguely saw a figure among the trees. Swish! Suddenly, 3 darts cut through the air and suddenly shot towards Lu Chuan. Seeing this, Lu Chuan was startled and quickly dodged sideways and hurriedly dodged the 3 darts. Huang Yuqing was so angry when he saw this that he started to curse. "Lu Ming, you bastard, is this the dart you use as an assassin? It's so crooked." Then, Lu Ming's voice came over, "Old Huang, you've been beaten back step by step, and you still have the nerve to blame me? Are you worthy of being the 3rd elder of Cheyenne Wu sect? My Cheyenne Wu sect is the overlord of one side, but your Lu family is the overlord level family in the entire Kunlun domain. Isn't it even more embarrassing that you had one hand crippled by this guy?" He cursed angrily, regretting that he had reached a cooperation with Lu Ming. This guy was almost useless. The darts he released in the dark were completely dodged by Lu Chuan. At this time, Lu Ming no longer said anything, found the right time, and shot a dart at Lu Chuan again. Swish! Exclamation mark. Seeing this, Lu Chuan sneered, "Lu Ming, you really don't give up. One of your hands is broken, but you still dare to attack me. If I catch you this time, it will be more than just losing one hand." At this moment, Huang Yuqing rushed towards Lu Chuan. "Lu Chuan, you little rascal, I will fight you today. The branch of the sacred tree on you should be handed over to the Cheyenne Wu sect. You are not worthy of holding such a sacred object." He rushed towards Lu Chuan like a madman. At this moment, he seemed to realize that retreating blindly would not lead to any results. Chapter 587. Let's give it a go. Huang Yuqing rushed over like crazy. He raised his hands and hit Lu Chuan with both palms. The crazy splitting palm is so powerful that it can easily smash a brick wall. If I hit you with this palm, even if you have a raging fire in your body to protect you, you will fall under this fierce palm. His outstretched palms contained a fierce momentum, and the sharp palm method attacked Lu Chuan. Seeing this, Lu Chuan instantly felt the fierce momentum and hurriedly retreated a few steps. "Why are you scared? Aren't you going to fight me head on?" Huang Yuqing laughed arrogantly and proudly. In his eyes, Lu Chuan was obviously scared and cowardly. Now he thought that, as long as these 2 palms hit Lu Chuan, he would definitely not die, but be seriously injured, and completely lose his combat effectiveness. This crazy splitting palm is the palm method he is most proud of after practicing for so long. A strong man in the early stage of the king of martial arts will be torn apart in an instant under his palm method, and he has no ability to resist at all. Lu Chuan took 2 steps back, and suddenly his footsteps sank. He stood still, raised his fists, and punched Huang Yuqing. "I don't need to dodge against you. Your palm technique is just so-so." Lu Chuan threw 2 fists directly and punched Huang Yuqing's palm. Boom. The next moment, Lu Chuan's fists hit Huang Yuqing's palms, and both sides released all their strength. Under the confrontation of these 2 forces, a fierce air wave was aroused, sweeping around, and directly raised a large piece of fallen leaves. Lu Chuan suddenly felt pain in his fists, and his bones had a tendency to crack. Then, Lu Chuan moved the 9 heavens mysterious fire in his body to his fists. Boom! Exclamation mark. The 9 heavens mysterious fire burned Huang Yuqing's palms. Huang Yuqing, who was in great pain, hurriedly tried to retract his palms. However, Lu Chuan suddenly reached out and grabbed his 2 wrists. "Want to escape? You have no chance. Just now I asked you to quickly distance yourself, which was my negligence, but this time, it is absolutely impossible. Feel the burning of this fierce fire." Huang Yuqing was like a madman in an instant, and roared at Lu Chuan, "Let go of my hand, you are a lunatic. If you dare to kill me, Cheyenne woman will never let you go." He roared loudly, veins popped on his forehead, and stared at Lu Chuan with bared teeth. The severe pain from his hands made him unbearable. He had never experienced such pain in his life. His back teeth were almost broken, but he still couldn't pull out his hands. Bang! At this moment, Huang Yuking's hands were burned into charcoal. Lu Chuan squeezed them hard, and they turned into slag, and fell to the ground. Huang Yuking, who retracted his arms, took several steps back, and sat down on the ground. He looked at his hands, and widened his eyes in disbelief. He mainly practiced palm techniques. The most important part of his body was his hands. Now both of his hands were destroyed. This undoubtedly completely destroyed his martial arts path. Of course, what he was worried about now was how he was going to survive. He burst into tears and wailed, "Asshole, you destroyed everything I had, my life. I will never let you go. If I die, Cheyenne woman will never let you go. They will definitely avenge me." He roared angrily, looking at Lu Chuan with endless anger and hatred in his eyes. Seeing this, Lu Yu walked towards him quickly. "So much nonsense, it's annoying to listen to it, just send you on your way." Huang Yuking kept backing away, looking at Lu Chuan with horror. He still didn't want to die. Even if his hands were disabled, as long as he could go back alive, he could still retire and enjoy his life. After all, he had struggled all his life to sit on the throne of the third elder of Cheyenne woman. It was a pity to die here before he could enjoy too much. If you let me go, I can promise you that you and I will have nothing to do with each other in the future, and Cheyenne woman will not bother you again. If you insist on killing me, Cheyenne woman will chase you to the ends of the earth, no matter what the cost, until you are killed," he said seriously, as if he wanted to persuade Lu Chuan to retreat and not let him kill him. Lu Chuan just smiled disdainfully. No one could believe such a cheap lie. I crippled his hands, and as long as I let him go, he would let go of the past and eliminate hatred? Absolutely impossible. If this bastard dared to return to Cheyenne woman, he would immediately gather the strong men of Cheyenne woman to attack me. How ridiculous. Do you think I will believe what you said? When you return to Cheyenne Wu sect, the first thing you will do is to gather people to deal with me. Will you just give up? How is that possible? Huang Yuking panicked. Lu Chuan, what do you want? Do you have to kill me? Don't you know my influence in Kunlun domain? As a martial emperor and the third elder of Cheyenne Wu sect, if I die, this matter will be enough to shock the whole Cheyenne Wu sect. Then the whole Cheyenne Wu sect will be your enemy. Are you sure you can bear it? Lu Chuan stepped forward and stepped on his chest. Don't talk nonsense. You are dead. I will never let you go. Lu Chuan suddenly stepped on his chest and pressed him to the ground. Huang Yuking was desperate. He gritted his teeth and struggled to get up, hugging Lu Chuan's thighs with his two arms. I will not let you go, he roared angrily. Lu Chuan drew out the bronze sword and slashed it towards his neck. Swish. Blood spurted out instantly and spilled on the soil beside. Huang Yuking was dead in an instant and became a corpse. But at this moment, a sound of breaking through the air suddenly sounded. Lu Chuan's brows tightened. There was still a looming hiding here that he hadn't dealt with. He quickly raised his leg to kick Huang Yuking away, but at this moment, he was still a step slower. Looming's dart shot over and pierced Lu Chuan's right shoulder. Puff. Blood flowed down his shoulder. Lu Chuan frowned and looked down at the dart on his shoulder. The cross dart on the shoulder seemed to be coated with a lavender liquid, which might be some kind of poison. He raised his hand to take off the dart and threw it on the ground. Ha 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 ha, Lu Chuan, you still showed me a flaw in the end, allowing me to seize this opportunity. Looming's figure slowly walked out of the woods. He held a dagger in his right hand and walked towards Lu Chuan. You have been poisoned by my poison. You will die in 10 minutes at most. During this period, you will enter a weak state. Do you know what the most important thing is? I don't have an antidote. Today, even if you kill me, you will definitely not live long. However, with my extreme shadow flash, I'm afraid you can't kill me. Chapter 588 You Can't Escape. After Looming came out, he smiled triumphantly. The Lu Chuan in front of him was doomed to die. Lu Chuan, who was poisoned, would first enter a weak state, and his speed and strength would be greatly reduced. Therefore, even if Looming came out, he believed that he would not die at the hands of Lu Chuan. And after 10 minutes, Lu Chuan would be dead, and then Looming would be declared the winner. I heard from Huang Yuking that you have a branch of the sacred tree on you. But he said something very right. You are not worthy of holding a sacred object, and putting a sacred object on you is completely desecrating the sanctity of the sacred object. He walked slowly towards Lu Chuan, and when he saw cold sweat on Lu Chuan's forehead and his pale face, he showed a triumphant smile. Now, hand over the things honestly, and I can let you die peacefully. Otherwise, these last 10 minutes will be the most painful 10 minutes of your life. Lu Chuan sighed, lowered his head slightly, and said, in that case, then come here, I'll give you the things. Take the things out first, let me see what they are. Lu Ming said cautiously. This is it. Lu Chuan took out a black box from his arms, and put it in his palm. It's really extraordinary. As soon as I took it out, a spiritual energy emerged. This branch of the sacred tree is an extremely rare treasure in the entire Kunlun domain. Very good, you are quite cooperative. It seems that you have also accepted your fate. A man of insight is a hero. Since you are so cooperative, I will leave you here to fend for yourself. After saying that, he walked towards Lu Chuan, and he stretched out his hand to take the box from Lu Chuan's hand. But at this moment, the nine heavens mysterious fire in Lu Chuan's body accelerated and rushed to his right shoulder. Lu Chuan felt a burst of heat in his right shoulder, and the nine heavens mysterious fire gradually forced the toxins out of his body. Almost in the blink of an eye, Lu Chuan's pale face regained color, and the cold sweat on his forehead stopped. And Lu Ming, now standing in front of him, this slippery mouse will have nowhere to hide. At the moment, when Lu Ming reached out to grab the box, Lu Chuan looked up and stared at him. This time, you can't escape. After saying that, Lu Chuan showed a kind smile on his face. At this moment, Lu Ming's pupils shrank, and he looked at Lu Chuan with horror. What? Your face, the poison has no effect on you at all? He looked at Lu Chuan in disbelief. The Lu Chuan in front of him was exactly the same as before, and he didn't look like he was poisoned at all. At this moment, Lu Ming was dumbfounded. His poison had no effect on Lu Chuan at all. In his panic, the first word that came to his mind was escape! Exclamation mark. He turned around without hesitation, wanting to escape from Lu Chuan directly. However, just as he was about to turn around, Lu Chuan pounced on him. Plop! Lu Chuan directly pressed Lu Ming under him, making him unable to move. Asshole, let me go. The Lu family will not let you go. You are a family outcast, a traitor. He shouted angrily. Lu Chuan punched him on the back of his neck. The fierce punch made Lu Ming cough repeatedly, and his eyes went black. You are dead. You can't escape this time. Lu Chuan said sternly. Let me go. If you dare to kill me, you are dead. Lu Fushan will not let you go. You will die in the hands of the Lu family sooner or later. Let me go. He shouted angrily. Lu Chuan took out the bronze sword, pierced his body from the back, penetrated the soil, and nailed him to the ground. Blood immediately flowed out and flowed around. Lu Ming, who was pierced by the bronze sword, screamed, and blood kept pouring out of his mouth. If the Lu family sends anyone again, I will kill them all without leaving a single one alive. Whether it's Lu Shanming, you, or someone from the Lu family next, I will not let them go. As for Lu Fusheng, I will make him pay sooner or later. Lu Ming, who had bled too much, gradually died. Lu Chuan pulled out the bronze sword and put it back into the scabbard. Then, he squatted in front of Lu Ming and fumbled for a while. Soon he found more than 100 taels of gold, a secret book, and the Lu family's token. As an assassin, he really didn't have any extra debris on him. The rest were all darts and hidden weapons. Lu Chuan picked up the secret book, which had 3 big characters on it. Extreme Shadow Flash. This was Lu Ming's most commonly used body movement martial arts. Lu Chuan saw the effect with his own eyes, which was really amazing, especially at night, when he moved like a ghost, and the naked eye could not catch his trace at all. If he wanted to escape, he could not be tracked at all. After accepting the secret book, Lu Chuan stood up and walked towards Huang Yuking. Huang Yuking had an elder's token, some golden wound medicine, and some money and miscellaneous items on her body. Overall, there was nothing useful. After Lu Chuan collected the things, he heard a burst of hurried footsteps. Looking back, he saw Hua Qianwu and the others jogging over. Hua Qianwu looked at Lu Chuan and asked hurriedly, "Are you okay? We heard screams from afar." Guzayadorao hurriedly walked up to Luchuan, looked at the corpses around, and couldn't help exclaiming, "Who are these two people? Are they going to plot against you?" Luchuan nodded slightly. "Yes, these two are Luming and Huang Yuking, the elders of Cheyenne Wu sect. They joined forces and planned to attack me here, but fortunately I killed them." "Then, what about Wonking?" Hua Cheyenne Wu asked curiously. "This Wonking is just a tool, a pawn for Luming and Huang Yuking to implement their plan." Luchuan shrugged helplessly. "Continue to look for the bird of all worlds. Don't worry about these two people. Once they are dead, no one will bother me for the time being." Hua Cheyenne Wu nodded slightly and said with lingering fear, "These two bastards are really brave. They actually chose to do it here. Fortunately they didn't succeed, otherwise it would be a big trouble. This is the one who was once number 1 on the Hua Cheng assassin list. His strength is average, and he is no match for Luchuan at all." Guzayadorao looked at Luchuan and couldn't help but sigh. "He seems to have caused you some minor injuries. There is a big gap in strength." Hua Cheyenne Wu said helplessly, "It can only be said that there are indeed not many strong people in Hua Cheng, which allows this Luming to be so powerful. What I'm worried about now is that, since this is a plan planned by them, does the bird of all worlds mentioned by Wonking really exist? We won't come here in vain, right? Let's look for it again. If there is no result, let's go back." Luchuan looked around and still didn't see the bird of all worlds. At this moment, Guzayadorao looked up at the sky, staring at something seriously. She frowned slightly and said, "Look at that bad circling in the sky. Is it the bird of all worlds?" Luchuan looked up and saw a white bad circling in the sky, and there was indeed a flower on its head. However, after some observation, Luchuan seemed to find that the bird seemed to be staring at the branch in his hand. Chapter 589 The Final Materials. The four of them all looked up at the sky, their eyes locked on the white bird hovering in the air. "That's the bird of all worlds. I didn't expect it to actually appear here." Luchuan raised the box in his hand and took out the branch of a sacred tree from it. Then, the bird of all worlds in the sky seemed to be stimulated by something and swooped down in the direction of Luchuan. Seeing this, Luchuan immediately knew that the bird of all worlds was coming for his branch. Unexpectedly, it was this branch that attracted it. But what made Luchuan curious was whether this was a natural attraction or someone gave the bird of all worlds an order to let it come out to find a branch. Swish! The bird of all worlds flew down. When Hua Cheyenne Wu saw it, she was extremely nervous and her heart was pounding. "It's flying down. Find a way to catch it," she said hurriedly. Luchuan's eyes were locked on the bird of all worlds, and he said in a deep voice, "Leave it to me with confidence. I will catch it." Luchuan raised his hand and placed the branch in his palm, presenting it perfectly to the bird of all worlds. After seeing this scene, Guzayadorao became extremely nervous. If there is any mistake, and the bird of all worlds flies away with the branch in its mouth, it will be a big problem. At that time, not only will the spirit tree of Hua Cheyenne Wu's family be unable to revive, but they will also lose a sacred object. This loss is quite large. Luchuan's eyes were fixed on the bird of all worlds, and his brows were furrowed, and he was very serious. Hua Cheyenne Wu said carefully, "We can't let the bird of all worlds take the branch away, otherwise all our efforts will be wasted." Swish! The bird of all worlds fell down, opened its mouth, and pecked at the branch. But at this moment, Luchuan suddenly withdrew his hand and took the branch back. Seeing that the situation was not good, the bird of all worlds was about to fly away. Luchuan did not hesitate and jumped directly into the air, raised his hand, and grabbed the bird of all worlds. Luchuan's move was very fierce. Although the bird of all worlds realized that something was wrong, it was still a step too late. Luchuan grabbed the bird of all worlds with one hand and held it tightly in his palm. The captured bird of all worlds pecked at Luchuan's palm like crazy, but the damage was almost negligible. After Luchuan held the bird of all worlds, he turned to look at Hua Cheyenne Wu and said, "We caught it. We also successfully collected the third material." Seeing this, Hua Cheyenne Wu jumped excitedly and walked towards Luchuan quickly. "Thank you so much. In this way, we can save the spirit tree soon," she said excitedly, and then took the bird of all worlds from Luchuan's hand, took a red silk thread from her body, and tied the bird of all worlds' neck and her wrist. "Let's go back." Huakayan Wu said, raising her hand and gently stroking the little head of the bird of all worlds. Lu Chuan looked at the two corpses next to him and said, let's deal with the corpse first, so as not to be seen by others. He dragged the corpse to a shallow pit and threw it in, and then found a pile of dead leaves and piled them on top to cover the corpse. In this way, it will not be easily discovered. To the outside world, Luming and Huang Yuking are just temporarily missing for a while. After doing all this, they started to return to the city. They went down the mountain and got on a carriage and started to return to the city along the road. When they returned to Huacheng, it was already evening. After returning to the Hua family mansion, Hua Tao specially hosted a banquet to entertain Lu Chuan. In the back garden of the Hua family, Hua Tao set up a banquet. Only the core members of the family were at the table. Everyone was waiting for Lu Chuan's arrival seriously. Lu Chuan came to the back garden, and Huakayan Wu came to Hua Tao first. Father, look, we found the Wanji flower. Now there is only one material left. As long as we can find the Xiangsu grass, we will have collected all the materials. Then, our family's spiritual tree will be saved. She smiled excitedly. Hearing this, Hua Tao also showed a happy smile on his face, and his eyes narrowed with laughter. He quickly lowered his head to look at the Wanji bird in Huakayan Wu's hand. Great, it's really great. I didn't expect that in just 2 or 3 days, all the materials would be found. Hua Tao turned his head to look at Lu Chuan, took a deep breath, walked forward, held Lu Chuan's hands with both hands, and said excitedly, thank you so much, you are really the benefactor of our Hua family. In the future, in the Hua family, and even in this entire Huacheng, I will satisfy you with whatever you want to do. Please sit down, let's have dinner first. After Lu Chuan sat down, everyone in the Hua family looked over. The older people had admiration in their eyes, and the younger people had a little admiration in their eyes. Lu Chuan just smiled faintly, it's not a difficult thing, I'll help you. Hua Tao sat next to Lu Chuan. Mr. Lu, today during the day, we all know that the Zhu family welcomed a distinguished guest, Huang Yuking, the third elder of Cheyenne Wu sect. How is this person now? He shouldn't have troubled you, right? Hua Tao looked at Lu Chuan seriously. Lu Chuan said disapprovingly, we were attacked by that guy when we were in the Flower Valley. Hua Tao was stunned for a moment. The elders of Cheyenne Wu sect actually attacked them in the daytime. Is it true that Huang Yuking attacked you? Then how did you escape back? He asked in disbelief. As the head of the Hua family, he knew the strength of Cheyenne Wu sect. The third elder of Cheyenne Wu sect was a top-level expert. There were few people in the entire Huacheng who could be his opponent. If an ordinary person was targeted by such a strong man, he would definitely die. Everyone turned their heads to look at Lu Chuan, and they all became curious. They had heard of the reputation of Cheyenne Wu sect a long time ago, not to mention that this person was an elder level figure. When he came to Huacheng, the city lord had to come out to greet him in person. Facing such a strong man, they didn't think Lu Chuan would be an opponent. Escape back? Why do you want to escape? Lu Chuan said in a flat tone. Hua Tao frowned slightly and asked in confusion, you didn't escape back. Then how did you get back? Didn't he attack you? That shouldn't be the case. You killed his apprentice. Hua Tao touched his chin, looking confused. Gu Xiaosang was sitting on the left-hand side of Lu Chuan. After hearing this, he couldn't help but chuckle. The old man surnamed Huang is dead. How could he be Lu Chuan's opponent? He should be the one to escape. Moreover, he joined forces with Luming to attack. Now you know that these two people are actually nothing, right? After hearing what Gu Xiaosang said, Hua Tao hurriedly looked at Huakayan Wu and asked, does she mean it? Gu Xiaosang quickly asked back, do I look like a liar? Of course what I said is true. Hua Tao smiled awkwardly, that's not what I meant. Huakayan Wu said immediately, Xiaosang is right, it is true. Lu Chuan killed Huang Yuking and also solved Luming. Now, there should be no one in the entire Huacheng who can threaten us. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 590 Celebration Banquet. After Huakai and Wu finished speaking, Huatao couldn't help but become serious. Lu Chuan's strength was really beyond his expectations. At such a young age, he was so powerful, and his future was promising. Huang Yuqing had practiced for most of his life to reach the top level of the martial emperor realm. That Lu Ming was born in the Lu family mansion and received a strong tilt of resources, so he reached the strength of the martial king realm early. And Lu Chuan grew up in the secular world, so his natural spiritual energy was so thin that it was almost non-existent, and the martial arts system was even more seriously lacking. In the secular world, if you want to practice martial arts and become a qualified warrior, it is almost impossible, unless some powerful hidden families have this ability and the possibility to let young descendants step into the martial arts. Apart from this, it is really difficult for the rest of the people to practice a skill in the secular world. Suddenly, Huatao looked at Lu Chuan with a subtle look. Lu Chuan, the Hua family is lucky to have you. Lu Chuan smiled faintly. Nothing. However, since the Zhu family and the Cheyenne Wu sect have joined forces to attack you and me, there is no need to keep the Zhu family. After Lu Chuan finished speaking, Huatao nodded repeatedly. You are right. I gave the Zhu family a chance at the beginning, allowing them to accelerate their development and sit in the position of the second in command of Huacheng. I didn't expect this group of people to be so greedy. They actually want to join forces with the Cheyenne Wu sect to kill the Hua family and sit firmly on the position of the boss of Huacheng. At this point, Huatao's face became heavy, and the other people at the table were also a little angry. In that case, we must not let the Zhu family go. The entire family must pay the price for this. That's right, we must let the Zhu family know the price of doing this, and this is also a warning to the other forces in Huacheng. If they want to take action against our Hua family, they must consider whether they are qualified. Well said. We must destroy the Zhu family and kill the chicken to scare the monkey. When everyone was angry, Lu Chuan looked at Huatao and asked, have you found any clues about the last material, the fairy grass? Huatao heard this, and his face became more worried. These materials are very rare. I'm afraid it will be difficult to find this fairy grass for a while. The most important thing is that, if we can only look for it without any clues, it will take a lot of time. Hearing Huatao's words, Lu Chuan knew in his heart that this last material might not be so easy to get. So many people in the entire Hua family couldn't find any clues about this fairy grass. It might be possible that this Huacheng didn't have this thing at all. How about this? Let's send someone to other families in Huacheng tomorrow to ask if they have any information about the fairy grass. Lu Chuan suggested. Huatao nodded slightly. No problem. I'll send someone to do it tomorrow. By the way, I said before that, if you can save our family's spiritual tree, I will give you a generous reward. Do you know what it is? Lu Chuan looked at him curiously and asked, what reward? Huatao showed a kind smile on his face, turned his head, and looked at Huakai and Wu. If you don't mind, you can marry my daughter. She will be yours in the future, and in terms of beauty, she can be regarded as a beauty that can topple the country. You will definitely not lose out. How about it? This really shocked Lu Chuan. Before Lu Chuan could speak, Gu Xiaosang immediately slammed the table angrily and retorted, no, I don't agree. For a moment, everyone present was stunned. For these people in the Hua family, they all supported it very much. They all saw Lu Chuan's strength, and his future height would be amazing. If the Hua family could get in touch with him, then the future development would be extraordinary. However, Hua Qianwu showed an embarrassed expression. She knew that Lu Chuan had a fiancé, but Huatao didn't know. However, when he said this, the atmosphere suddenly became awkward. Huatao looked at Gu Xiaosang with a confused face. You don't agree? Do you like Lu Chuan? Gu Xiaosang turned his head and stammered. I don't like him. Someone likes him, but that person is not me. Huatao quickly turned his head to look at Gu Xiaorao, and instantly realized something and apologized quickly. You and Mr. Lu are a couple. I'm really sorry, I didn't know this. No wonder I saw that the two of you were very close when you first came here. So that's the case. I was careless. I'll punish myself with 3 glasses of wine. He quickly raised his glass and drank 3 glasses of wine. Gu Xiaorao just smiled indifferently and said, it's okay. We didn't tell you in advance, so you misunderstood. After Huatao finished 3 glasses of wine, he looked at Lu Chuan and continued to ask carefully, since this Miss Gu is your principal wife, do you mind taking a concubine? I know that this kind of thing no longer exists in the secular world, but this is Kunlun domain, and when in Rome, do as the Romans do. Hua Qianwu covered her face with embarrassment and didn't want to say anything more. Hua Tao looked back at her. It shouldn't be wrong to let you be a concubine, right? Hua Qianwu sighed helplessly. If they really wanted to talk about marriage, she really wanted to be with Lu Chuan. After all, there was no one better person than Lu Chuan in the whole Huacheng. But Hua Tao was too impatient, and the timing of the proposal was too abrupt. Hua Tao sat in his original seat. As the head of the Hua family, he naturally wanted to see the Hua family prosper and become stronger. Therefore, he hoped to keep Lu Chuan, or establish some relationship with Lu Chuan. Let's eat. Lu Chuan picked up the chopsticks and put the food into the bowl. Hua Qianwu raised her hand and placed it on Gu Xiaorao's hand, smiling helplessly. My dad is like this. He talks nonsense when he drinks too much. Let's eat. Today's table of delicious food has been prepared for a long time. Gu Xiaorao nodded generously, not taking it too seriously. After dinner, everyone dispersed, and Lu Chuan returned to the study and prepared to go to bed. Before going to bed, he took out the martial arts extreme shadow flash from his arms. It was because of this martial arts that Looming had a fast movement speed, which allowed him to escape. When he first met him, Lu Chuan opened the first page and began to read it carefully. This was the first time he got a martial arts since he entered the Kunlun domain. His previous battles were very simple, very basic boxing and kicking skills. If he could learn a few martial arts to rely on, his combat effectiveness would be strengthened. Lu Chuan began to study this martial arts seriously and planned to practice it tomorrow. After flipping through a few pages, he lay on the bed and fell asleep. When Lu Chuan woke up the next morning, he was still thinking about what he had read in the martial arts book. The next morning, Lu Chuan began to practice his skills in the yard. According to the description of the martial arts, Lu Chuan practiced it. Before he knew it, it was already noon. At noon, Hua Qianwu found Lu Chuan and said that she was going to the Zhu family. Chapter 591 Visiting the Zhu family. In the front yard, Lu Chuan's figure shuttled between several obstacles. His figure was so fast and flexible that it was difficult to catch it with the naked eye. In just one morning, Lu Chuan had already reached the entry level of cultivation. This speed was not bad. Lu Chuan was very satisfied with this. He stopped to wipe the sweat from his forehead and saw Hua Qianwu walking towards him. Is there something you want to talk to me about? Lu Chuan then asked, has the immortal beard grass been found? Hua Qianwu shook her head slightly. There is no news for the time being. The family has sent people out to collect clues. If they find any clues about the immortal beard grass, they will notify us immediately. However, my father sent me to the Zhu family and asked me to ask if there are any clues there. Lu Chuan looked at Hua Qianwu and asked, aren't you going to settle accounts with the Zhu family? We have to wait until the spirit tree revives before we take action. We don't have enough manpower now. Lu Chuan shrugged. Then I'll go with you and get rid of them by the way. Ah. You are going to destroy their entire family by yourself? What's wrong with that? As long as I'm strong enough, isn't it okay? That's true, but the impact is too great. Try not to fight with them. Lu Chuan said disapprovingly. As long as we kill all the core members of the Zhu family, the rest will be easy. Hua Qianwu nodded slightly. Okay, let's go now. But when I go over, I'll ask about the situation first to see if they have any information about the fairy grass. If they do, there's no need to rush to attack them first. At this time, Gu Xiaorao and Gu Xiaosang also came over. Is there any information about the fairy grass? Gu Xiaorao came over and asked. Hua Qianwu turned her head and looked at Gu Xiaorao. No, we thought about going to the Zhu family first to ask if they know the whereabouts of this material. Then go and ask them. If they know any clues, it will be easy. Then, the four of them set off again and walked towards the Zhu family in Huacheng. The streets of Huacheng are very lively, with various vendors hawking their wares and many children chasing and playing on the streets. Here, you can see people in different costumes. Most of them are people who come from major cities to travel and play, so in Huacheng, there are all kinds of people. Soon, Huakai and Wu arrived at the door of the Zhu family's mansion. At this time, inside the Zhu family, in the meeting hall, Zhu Shenghua sat in the main seat. All the core members of the Zhu family were present. Their expressions were very solemn and their faces were full of worries. Zhu Shenghua looked at everyone and said, Elder Huang has not returned since he went out yesterday. There is no news about him in the city, and the people sent out have not found him. How could a good person suddenly disappear? This is definitely strange. Not only that, but Lu Ming, who visited yesterday, also disappeared today. However, Lu Ming is not bad. He himself is a person who does not hide in the light. It's just that Elder Huang has not returned, which really makes people feel uneasy. Everyone in the Zhu family is looking forward to Huang Yuqing bringing them an exciting news. That is the news of killing Lu Chuan and taking back the branches of the sacred tree. As long as this is done, the Hua family will be completely sent to hell, and there will be no possibility of turning over. Zhu Shenghua paced back and forth in the meeting hall, feeling uneasy. Last night, he waited until the second half of the night, but did not wait for the news of Huang Yuqing. Just when everyone was anxious, a servant rushed in and said to Zhu Shenghua respectfully, Master of the family, there are guests outside. It's Huakai and Wu, the eldest daughter of the Hua family, and Lu Chuan is accompanying her. Hearing this, Zhu Shenghua paused and looked back. Is it true? They are here? What the hell? I didn't wait for Elder Huang, but these two people. What are they going to do? Zhu Shenghua asked. The servant shook his head slightly. I don't know. Let them in. Zhu Shenghua sighed helplessly. The hearts of the several family elders next to him were hanging at this moment. Could the Hua family have seen through something and are going to take action against us? Upon hearing this, Zhu Shenghua said helplessly, it's not impossible. Bai Yi is the one we found. The Xian Wu sect wants to cooperate with us, and the Hua family knows it. They are definitely not fools. They must know what we are going to do. Could it be that they are here to settle accounts with us? As soon as these words were spoken, everyone present began to feel uneasy and uncomfortable, as if a disaster was about to happen. However, Zhu Shenghua did smile disapprovingly. Now the entire Hua family is busy trying to revive the spirit tree. How could they possibly have the time to deal with us? If they really want to deal with us, would they choose to send these two people? That would be too much of a disdain for our Zhu family. What the patriarch said makes sense. If the Hua family really wants to take action against us, they will definitely not just send these two young descendants. There must be some other reason. Zhu Shenghua smiled proudly. Yes, if he dares to take action, he must also consider whether he has the strength to withstand the pressure brought by the entire Zhu family. There are hundreds of people in the Zhu family, so isn't it easy to deal with 2 or 3 people? Zhu Shenghua smiled proudly. At this time, Huakai and Wu and Lu Chuan walked in, followed by Guzayadora and Guzayada sang. Patriarch Zhu, how are you? Huakai and Wu walked in and looked at Zhu Shenghua and said, Miss Hua, is there anything that has happened to you when you visited my humble home? Zhu Shenghua looked at Huakai and Wu and smiled faintly. I came here to ask you, do you know about the plant called Xiangsukeo? Zhu Shenghua looked at everyone with a confused look on his face and asked, do you know? Everyone shook their heads and said, I don't know. They said in unison. Even if they knew in their hearts, they would definitely not say it out loud. Did you see it? You don't know. Why don't you go ask somewhere else? Zhu Shenghua said disapprovingly. Huakai and Wu frowned slightly. This guy's attitude was so impatient. In fact, it was obvious that this guy didn't want to bow to the Hua family a long time ago. If anyone knows the whereabouts of Xiangsukeo, please tell me. This thing is very useful to me. Zhu Shenghua smiled and said, it's to save the spiritual tree in your family, right? Don't worry, we probably won't find it. He chuckled, with pride in his laughter. I forgot to tell you that Xiangsukeo is the last material we are looking for. As long as we find it, the spiritual tree will be able to revive. Hearing this, Zhu Shenghua's face became solemn. In other words, this was almost his last chance. If he couldn't stop Huakai Wu from finding the immortal beard grass, then their Zhu family would never have a chance to make a comeback. Chapter 592, Settlement of Accounts. In the meeting hall, Zhu Shenghua's face was gloomy. He paced back and forth for a few times, then turned his head to look at Lu Chuan. Only the fairy grass is left. Lu Chuan nodded slightly. Yes, there is only this material left. Zhu Shenghua nodded slightly thoughtfully, and then said, well, if I encounter this material, I will definitely keep an eye out for you. Really? Thank you very much, Master Zhu, but now I want to ask you to recall whether you have heard of this fairy grass recently, in Huacheng. Lu Chuan suddenly asked, making Zhu Shenghua a little nervous. Didn't I say that? If I encounter this material, I will keep an eye out for you. Why are you asking so many questions? Of course I don't know. If I know where there is fairy grass, I will definitely inform you as soon as possible. You can rest assured about this. He said very naturally, as if he was telling the truth. But Lu Chuan could see that he was a little guilty when he spoke just now. This guy may have really heard of fairy grass recently, but he was unwilling to say it. Zhu Shenghua, I hope you can cooperate with the Hua family. After all, you don't have many chances anymore. After Lu Chuan finished speaking, Zhu Shenghua suddenly looked up at Lu Chuan and Hua Qianwu. What do you mean? What do you mean I don't have many chances? Explain clearly. Lu Chuan said calmly, the three elders of Qianwu sect, including Luming of the Lu family, they all have no chance. You still have a chance to live. I hope you cherish it. Hearing this, Zhu Shenghua suddenly became alert, stepped back a few steps, and swallowed nervously. What do you mean by that? Lu Chuan looked at him and smiled faintly. Can't you hear what I mean? Huang Yuking and Luming are already dead. Zhu Shenghua suddenly widened his eyes and looked at Lu Chuan in disbelief. The Zhu family members sitting around were also frightened at this moment, looking at Lu Chuan with disbelief in their eyes. Who is Huang Yuking? That's the third elder of Qianwu sect. The third elder of Qianwu sect is actually dead. Died in Huacheng. The most outrageous thing is that there is actually a member of the Lu family here. This is simply too outrageous. Zhu Shenghua looked at Lu Chuan and felt extremely surprised. He didn't expect that this was the reason why he hadn't waited for the news of Huang Yuking and Luming. At this moment, Zhu Shenghua was frantically calculating in his mind. It seemed that he really had no chance to turn over. Even if the three elders of Qianwu came, it would be useless. Wouldn't their Zhu family have no chance of success? I'm afraid it won't be long before Lu Chuan will help the Hua family to gather the last material and revive the family spirit tree. At that time, their Zhu family will no longer have the possibility of surpassing the Hua family. Thinking of this, Zhu Shenghua couldn't help but take a deep breath. He was still reluctant to give up. I really don't know about the fairy beard grass. You should go to other families to ask, he said impatiently. As long as Lu Chuan is not allowed to find the fairy beard grass, everything will be fine. Lu Chuan spread his hands and said disapprovingly, since you don't know, let's start to settle the accounts. Hearing this, Zhu Shenghua widened his eyes, looked at Lu Chuan, and asked hurriedly, what accounts are you settling? What accounts do I have to settle with you? He asked back hurriedly. The rest of the people also stood up. What nonsense are you talking about? You are a young junior, and you want to settle accounts with us, but don't you look at your own status? What is there to settle? Does our Zhu family owe you anything? Stop talking nonsense here. Our Zhu family is upright. Why do you want to trouble us? I think you are just looking for trouble. Hua Qianwu, this is the person you brought. How dare he talk to us like this? Can our two families still cooperate in the future? Hua Qianwu stood up and confronted everyone, not at all afraid. I think you all know very well what we are talking about. Your Zhu family has joined forces with Qianwu and want to snatch the branches of the sacred tree from Lu Chuan. Not only that, you are also thinking about bringing down the Hua family and then becoming the only one in power. What? Is there something wrong with what I said? Hua Qianwu looked at Zhu Shenghua, staring at him with burning eyes. Zhu Shenghua took a deep breath, calmed down and explained, you may have misunderstood. The third elder of Qianwu sect came to our Zhu family's house to rest. This is not something we can decide at will. Really? What about Bai Yi? Isn't he also in the same group with your Zhu family? Zhu Shenghua hurriedly said, Miss Hua, don't talk nonsense about things without evidence. Hua Qianwu stared coldly at the group of people around. At the beginning, we were willing to give you some resources in order to buy the news of the branches of the sacred tree, so that you became the second largest noble family in Huacheng. However, you have just sat in the second in command's chair for a short time, and you are already planning how to kill the boss. Okay, you guys, things have come to this point. Do you still want me to talk to you in a nice tone? Dream on. Hua Qianwu said coldly. Zhu Shenghe heard this, and his heart sank suddenly, feeling bad. This Hua Qianwu, it seems that he really came to their Zhu family to cause trouble. This is not easy to deal with. After all, the Zhu family is still a little behind the Hua family in terms of strength. The head of the Hua family has just broken through the martial emperor realm, and his strength is terrifying. He is only at the peak of the martial king realm. If they fight, the Zhu family will definitely not be as good as the Hua family. Hua Qianwu, you are so stubborn. It seems that there is really no need for our two families to cooperate. Then, Zhu Shenghua smiled coldly, but since the four of you are here, just stay and don't go back. Hearing this, the other Zhu family members around couldn't hold back, and seemed to want to take action. They all held their breath and concentrated, waiting for Zhu Shenghua's order, and they would attack together. Zhu Shenghua had already made up his mind. Since the Hua family wanted to tear their faces with them, they would naturally not tolerate it. After tying up Hua Qianwu and taking him as a hostage, the Hua family would never dare to take action against their Zhu family again. In Zhu Shenghua's eyes, Hua Qianwu was really stupid. She actually came to him in person to give him bargaining chips so that the Zhu family could still save their lives. Seeing that everyone around was ready to make a move, Hua Qianwu clenched his fists in anger, looked at Zhu Shenghua and shouted, "Asshole, ungrateful wolf. We will not let you go. Ha ha ha. You should let me say this. I will never let you go. We will tie you up later. With your attractive looks, I guess you can help our Zhu family make a lot of money." He laughed triumphantly. At the same time, other Zhu family members around also quietly took out their weapons, ready to fight at any time. At this time, Lu Chuan stood up, looked at Zhu Shenghua, and asked coldly, "Do you know who killed Huang Yuking?" Chapter 593 News. Lu Chuan's question stunned Zhu Shenghua. "You brought back the news of Huang Yuking's death. I think it must have been Hua Tao who did it himself, right? Otherwise, it would be hard to find the next person who could kill Huang Yuking in the entire Huacheng." Zhu Shenghua believed that it was Hua Tao who killed Huang Yuking. In this case, everything would be fine. The strongest one was not here, so it would be very smooth for them to attack Hua Qianwu next. "Everyone in the Zhu family, listen to my order. Tie up Hua Qianwu for me. Isn't she an admired dancer? Send her to the brothel and let her show off her dancing skills there." After Zhu Shenghua finished speaking, everyone in the Zhu family picked up their weapons and prepared to attack Hua Qianwu. Hua Qianwu glared at Zhu Shenghua angrily. "You really showed your true colors. You were really blind at the beginning and let the Hua family help you. A bunch of ungrateful wolves." Zhu Shenghua laughed. "This is our strength and our opportunity. Now we must seize this opportunity and overthrow your Hua family in one fell swoop." At this time, Gu Xiaorao drew out her sword and seriously confronted the people around her. "Qianwu, we will protect you from here." Gu Xiaosang also took out her weapon and prepared for battle. Lu Chuan walked to their side and said, "You don't need to fight, leave the rest to me." Hearing this, Zhu Shenghua couldn't help but sneered. "You are so arrogant. You actually want to destroy our clan alone. It's really ridiculous. A newborn calf is not afraid of a tiger. Today, I will teach you how to be a man." He drew a machete from his waist and pointed the blade at Lu Chuan. "Today, let you taste the swordsmanship of my Zhu family." The next moment, he rushed towards Lu Chuan. Suddenly, Lu Chuan's figure flashed and rushed towards Zhu Shenghua. Indistinctly, one could see black after images in the trajectory of Lu Chuan's movement, confusing everyone's sight. Swish. Almost instantly, Lu Chuan flashed to the side of Zhu Shenghua. But suddenly, Zhu Shenghua's mind buzzed, giving him a severe headache. "Ah!" he roared, swinging his machete and about to chop at Lu Chuan. Lu Chuan's immortal golden pupils saw the trajectory of his swinging knife clearly. "That's it." Lu Chuan raised his hand and drew out the bronze sword, blocking his machete. Clang! The weapons collided with each other, creating dazzling sparks. Lu Chuan was much stronger than him, and he directly bounced the machete in his hand away. Swish. The machete flew to the side and landed in a corner. Zhu Shenghua stepped back several steps, his hands numb and trembling from the huge force. He looked up at Lu Chuan and was horrified. This power. He looked at Lu Chuan in disbelief. It was just a short fight, but he was beaten without any chance to fight back. The difference in strength was probably a bit big. He was a little panicked, and he even felt that he was no match for the young man in front of him. Now you know who killed Huang Yuqing, right? Huang Yuqing is not my opponent, and you are not worthy of shouting in front of me. You are looking for death. Lu Chuan rushed towards Zhu Shenghua again. At this moment, Zhu Shenghua hurriedly shouted, "All Zhu family members, listen to my order. Catch Hua Qianwu for me. As long as you catch her, you will have a chance to live." After he shouted, the rest of the Zhu family picked up their weapons and were about to surround Hua Qianwu. Stop. At this time, someone shouted loudly, causing everyone in the audience to stop. At this moment, Zhu Lingyan walked in and entered the sight of everyone. Zhu Shenghua looked at Zhu Lingyan and scolded, "Why are you yelling? Do you have the right to give orders in the Zhu family?" Zhu Lingyan looked at the Zhu family and said, "If you dare to make a move today, none of you will survive. If you must make a move, then I will never stand on your side." After saying that, Zhu Lingyan took out the dagger in her hand. Although she is from the secular world, she is extremely talented and now has the strength of the martial king realm. Among this group of people, her strength is not too bad. Seeing this, Zhu Shenghua immediately roared, "Asshole, you bastard, do you want to be a traitor to the Zhu family? Believe it or not, everyone in the Zhu family will kill you first." At this time, Zhu Lingyan looked at Lu Chuan and said, "I'm really sorry, the source of all this is from me. If I hadn't brought this news to Kunlun domain, there wouldn't be so many subsequent things involved. I've caused you trouble. Now I have seen through the face of this family. I will not go along with them." Her face was still cold, but she was more determined, as if she had made up her mind. Seeing this, Lu Chuan couldn't help but sigh. "It's not all your fault. You are too obsessed with martial arts and want to enter Kunlun domain to practice, but the result is not good. You are used as a pawn by the Zhu family for family marriage. Don't worry, I won't make trouble for you, but this Zhu Shenghua, he is dead today." Zhu Shenghua's face was red with anxiety at this time, and he shouted hurriedly, "Hurry up and do it. If you don't catch Hua Qianwu, then I will die." However, the next moment, before the rest of the Zhu family took action, Lu Chuan rushed up and put the bronze sword on Zhu Shenghua's neck. "Whoever dares to move, I will kill him. Try to move, I can kill even the elders of Qianwu sect, so I will not stop with this bastard." Hearing this, everyone froze in place, not daring to move. At this time, Zhu Shenghua's heartbeat began to accelerate, and he was so nervous that his whole body was tense and sweat broke out on his forehead. "Don't kill me, I can satisfy you whatever you want," he said in panic. "Tell me, do you know the news about the immortal beard grass?" Lu Chuan asked in a scolding tone. Zhu Shenghua swallowed nervously. It's not that he didn't know, but he just didn't want to say it. Lu Chuan could see that this guy was very hesitant just now, so he guessed that he must know something, but he didn't want to see the Hua family revive the spirit tree, so he chose to keep silent. "If I tell you, will you let me go?" He looked at Lu Chuan nervously, still imagining whether he could have a way to survive. "You will die today." Zhu Shenghua's heart sank, and he said coldly, "Since you will die, if you tell it, why should I tell you? If you don't tell it, then I will slaughter your entire Zhu family. If you tell it, some of these people can survive. However, the elders of the Zhu family must die with you." Zhu Shenghua was immediately entangled. He was going to die anyway, so was there any need for him to reveal the news about the immortal beard grass? However, if the entire Zhu family was wiped out, wouldn't the Zhu family be directly removed from the Huacheng? The family business they have worked hard for so many years in Huacheng will also disappear into thin air. Thinking of this, he was a little reluctant and finally sighed helplessly and chose to say it out. Chapter 594 Yang Menghuan. Zhu Shenghua lowered his head, looking depressed. "I'll tell you, okay. As long as you can keep the Zhu family's business, I can tell you. But if you kill all the elders, who will be in charge of the Zhu family next?" He looked up at Lu Chuan. It's very simple. Let Zhu Lingyan come. She is already a martial king at a young age, worthy of this position. Zhu Shenghua glanced at Zhu Lingyan. He looked down on people in the secular world from the bottom of his heart, and he was even more unwilling to let people from the secular world take charge of the Zhu family. If he did that, he would be sorry for his ancestors. However, at this point, he had no bargaining power. I said, the fairy beard grass you are looking for is in Yang Menghuan's place, and she has kept it as a treasure. I wanted to buy it from her before, but she refused, saying it was useful. Hearing this, Hua Qian Wu's face showed a little more smile. Who is Yang Menghuan? Zhu Shenghua looked up at Lu Chuan and asked, you don't even know Yang Menghuan? She is the most famous dancer in the entire Huacheng, the daughter of the city lord Yang Zun. Is what he said true? Lu Chuan turned around and looked at Hua Qian Wu. Yes, Yang Menghuan is indeed the best dancer in Huacheng. She only performs twice a year. Only the rich and powerful can watch those two dance shows. Ordinary people don't even have a chance to take a peek. This guy is so arrogant. She only performs twice a year, and only the rich and powerful can watch it. No wonder she is the #1 dancer in Huacheng. Lu Chuan sighed. Then, he looked at Zhu Shenghua again and asked, the fairy beard grass is with her. Are you sure? Absolutely true. I wanted to buy this fairy beard grass from her before and auction it, but she refused to sell it, saying that it was very important to her. This is the news I know. You will let the Zhu family go, right? He looked at Lu Chuan nervously, fearing that Lu Chuan would go back on his word. It's okay to let your Zhu family go. There are 3 elders in your family. Come over here and kneel down. After Lu Chuan said this, the 3 elders immediately slammed the table and stood up. A rogue actually spoke to us like this. Do you think we have lived to such an old age in vain? Can you kill us? That's right. Cows and sheep will fight before they die. What about us? We are not useless. The 3 elders all stood up and took out their weapons. They would definitely not sit and wait for death and let a young junior kill them at will. It seems that the fighting spirit of the old men is very high. In this case, I will fight with you. Seeing this, Zhu Shenghua said helplessly, the strength of the 3 elders was the peak of the martial king realm when they were young, but they have never broken through to the martial emperor realm. Now they are old and weak, and their strength has declined. How can they be opponents? He sighed helplessly. The eldest elder scolded, you don't even dare to resist. You are not worthy of being the head of the family. After that, the 3 elders rushed towards Lu Chuan together. Then, Lu Chuan raised his right hand, and the sun god fire emerged from his palm. Boom! Exclamation mark. A huge fireball emerged, and the 3 elders were slow to react. They didn't even have time to dodge, and were directly engulfed by the fireball. Then, the 3 elders kept screaming and struggling in the raging fire. In a short while, they were all burned into a charred corpse. Seeing this, the rest of the Zhu family couldn't help but take a breath of cold air, and there was a little more awe in their eyes when they looked at Lu Chuan. The next moment, Lu Chuan swung out the bronze sword and cut off Zhu Shenghua's head. At this point, all the core members of the Zhu family died. Lu Chuan turned and looked at Zhu Lingyan. Next, you will be the head of the Zhu family. With the resources stored by the Zhu family, I believe your strength will increase quickly. Zhu Lingyan put away her weapon and looked at Lu Chuan with a complicated look. Thank you for helping me. I'm very grateful. If there is a chance to repay you, I will definitely do my best. Lu Chuan looked at the Zhu family and asked loudly, who here does not accept Zhu Lingyan as the head of the family? Stand up. After a moment, no one dared to react, and all chose to acquiesce. Okay, it's over, we should go. Zhu Lingyan hurriedly sent Lu Chuan and others out of the Zhu family mansion and began to collect the bodies and clean up. Lu Chuan, standing at the door of the Zhu family mansion, stretched his body. There is only one material left. Let's go find Yang Menghuan. Lu Chuan looked at Hua Qian Wu and said, you lead the way. Hua Qian Wu nodded slightly, but with a slightly sad look on her face. This Yang Menghuan usually doesn't see people, so if we look for her, we may not be able to see her. This woman is so arrogant. It's okay to limit her performance to 2 times a year, but it's so difficult to even meet her once. Never mind, let's go and take a look first. Lu Chuan asked Hua Qian Wu to lead the way in front, and he followed closely behind. Walking on the street, Gu Xiaosang scratched his head curiously and asked, is Yang Menghuan's dancing posture special? She is so famous, even though she only performs twice a year. In the secular world, if an artist dared to put on airs like this, he would have been out of fashion long ago. Gu Xiaorao guessed, maybe she has some outstanding qualities that can attract others. Lu Chuan looked at Huakai Wu and asked, have you seen her performance? No, I have never received an invitation. But my father has watched it, and the dignitaries from other cities around will also come here to enjoy the performance when the time comes. The dance she performed should be normal, right? Lu Chuan asked curiously. Of course it is normal. Her appearance, beauty, figure, and temperament are all top-notch. After all, she only prepares for a performance once every 6 months. Compared to her, I'm a little worse, but I don't have the patience to prepare for a performance once every 6 months. In front is where Yang Menghuan lives, the city lord's mansion. Outside the magnificent city lord's hall, in front of the Vermilion Gate, stood 2 rows of fully armed soldiers. Lu Chuan walked towards the gate and was stopped by a soldier. Who are you? Who are you looking for? What are you doing? The soldier had a cold expression and looked at Lu Chuan seriously. I'm looking for Yang Menghuan. Miss Yang is not seeing anyone now. Please go back. Then when is she free? I have something important to talk to her about. I'm visiting on behalf of the Hua family. The soldier glanced at Huakai Wu and said, I can see that, but you still can't go in. Miss Yang hasn't been able to see anyone for some time. Lu Chuan scratched his head and suddenly became curious. She couldn't see anyone for a while. Did something unexpected happen? Then, when can I see her? Maybe, at the dinner in half a month, she will come out to perform, but if you don't receive an invitation, you are not eligible to attend. Lu Chuan looked back at Huakai Wu and shrugged helplessly. If you can't get in, you can't just force your way in, right? In that case, let's go home. I'll ask my dad to come over and ask again. Chapter 595 Dance. Lu Chuan and his companions, who were stopped outside the door, had no choice but to return home. They were not qualified to enter the city lord's mansion, and it was useless to linger here. Lu Chuan and his companions could only return to the Hua family's residence. Entering the front yard of the Hua family's residence, Lu Chuan and his companions ran into Hua Tao. Hua Tao was in a hurry to go out to do something, and he happened to meet Lu Chuan. Mr. Lu is back. How is the situation? How is the Zhu family doing now? Hua Tao stepped forward and looked at Lu Chuan with some expectation. I said when I went there that I wanted to wipe out the Zhu family. Hua Tao looked at Lu Chuan in surprise. You really did that? Hundreds of people in the Zhu family? They all died in your hands. Lu Chuan shook his head slightly. How is that possible? There are so many people in the Zhu family. If I really kill them all one by one, it will probably take a whole day and a night. What's more, I don't want to involve innocent people at will. I killed Zhu Shenghua, the head of the Zhu family, as well as the 3 elders of the Zhu family. They basically represent the core of the Zhu family. As long as they are killed, the Zhu family will basically be in name only. What about the rest of the people? How to deal with them? Hua Tao asked still curiously. I'll let Zhu Lingyan take the position of the head of the family, and now the Zhu family is controlled by her. Zhu Lingyan. Hua Tao lowered his head thoughtfully. I remember her. She, like you, came from the secular world, and basically came at the same time as you. It seems that you two had some intersections when you were in the secular world, but seeing that you have nominated her to be the head of the family, I believe there should be no conflicts between you two. Lu Chuan just smiled slightly. She is just a martial arts fanatic. She will do anything to practice martial arts. She is indeed talented, and she is not a bad person. I'm not a petty person. What you said is right. Zhu Lingyan is indeed a martial arts genius. In an environment like the secular world, she can actually cultivate to the realm of martial king at a young age. It is indeed extraordinary. Lu Chuan coughed lightly and said seriously, head of the Hua family, I came to talk to you about something. Just tell me what it is. I will definitely help you if I can. Hua Tao said generously. We found the whereabouts of the last material, but we can't get it for the time being. Hua Tao frowned slightly. Did we find the last material so quickly? Yes, I forced it out of Zhu Shenghua. The last material, the fairy beard grass, is in the hands of Yang Menghun, the daughter of the city lord Yang Zun. Hua Tao was a little surprised. It's actually in her hands. Yes, but we can't even meet her, so we can't get this material. Hua Tao suddenly remembered something. More than a week later, it will be the day when Yang Menghun will perform. She will show off her dancing skills on the stage of Wanhua Garden. At that time, maybe we will have a chance to meet her. Other than that, you basically have no chance to see her. She stays at home all day, and no one in the city has ever seen her. If it weren't for the publicity before the big show, many people might have forgotten her. But unfortunately, when they invited me, they only gave me one place, which means that only I can go to watch. Hua Tao said quickly, I'm afraid I can't give you my place easily. I don't have that ability yet. Lu Chuan frowned and asked curiously, you don't have this ability? Do others have this ability? Of course, some people can bring 3 or 4 places with them after being invited, and can bring people with them at will. Lu Chuan fell into deep thought. Hua Tao was considered a very important and respected figure in Huacheng, but he only had one place. Those who could bring 3 or 4 places with them must be big figures from other places. Do you know who they are? Hua Tao pondered for a long time and said, I know someone named Zhen. He is from Xianshu City and is a member of the Zhen family. Their family runs the largest martial arts hall in Xianshu City. The strength of this family is quite strong and is considered one of the best in the entire Xianshu City. This Zhen Xianayu should be coming to Huacheng soon. I will visit him when he arrives and see if I can get a quota. Hua Tao sighed helplessly, but the probability may not be high. By the way, Mr. Lu, are you sure that, as long as you meet Yang Menghun, you can get the fairy grass? This question asked Lu Chuan, and he really didn't dare to say that he was 100% guaranteed. But that was better than not even meeting him. If the man named Zhen Xianayu comes to Huacheng, please tell me. I want to meet him in person. No problem. Thank you for running back and forth for our family's spiritual tree. It's a small matter. A small matter. Then, Hua Tao hurriedly left the Hua mansion. It seems that it will take a lot of effort to get this last material. Gu Xiao outside, then looked at Hua Qian Wu and said, no matter what, we will help your family save the spiritual tree. Hua Qian Wu looked at Gu Xiao, grabbed Gu Xiao's right hand with both hands, and said softly, thank you for your help. In the future, whether in Huacheng or Xiaocheng, our Hua family will take care of your Gu family. Hearing this, Gu Xiao was much happier. With the help of the Hua family, the Gu family can completely expand their power again, and it is not impossible to even establish a family branch in Huacheng. Then, they had dinner, and went to rest. At night, Lu Chuan continued to practice the extreme shadow flash in the yard. He wanted to practice this body movement martial arts to perfection, as soon as possible. In the next few days, Lu Chuan was practicing extreme shadow flash. Apart from eating and sleeping, he basically only had time to practice his body skills. Gu Xiao was also working hard to practice swordsmanship, and with the help of Hua Qian Wu, her strength increased rapidly. As the largest family in Huacheng, the Hua family had a huge amount of resources, especially those elixirs that helped with practice, which Gu Xiao could not use up at all. In just a few days, Gu Xiao reached the peak of the Saint Realm, and she was only one opportunity away from breaking through to the Martial King Realm. On this day, Lu Chuan was practicing his body skills in the yard, and Hua Tao walked over quickly. Mr. Lu, I just received news that Zhen Xianayu has arrived in Huacheng. I have greeted him, and he can meet you. Lu Chuan stepped forward and stood still, looking at Hua Tao. What about Yang Zun? He still doesn't agree to let me meet Yang Menghun? Hua Tao sighed helplessly. No matter what I said, he didn't agree. In his words, seeing her in advance would break the mystery. Not really. Is she too ashamed to be seen? Lu Chuan asked. I don't know. Let's wait until the day of the performance. You can meet her that day, and then we can talk about the fairy grass. I'm just afraid that she used the fairy grass in advance. Lu Chuan sighed with a little worry. Chapter 596 Zhen Xianayu. Well, I'll take you to see Zhen Xianayu. When we get there, you can tell him that he has 3 quotas, but he has already brought all the people. It's hard to give one to you. Hua Tao said with a sad face, and then took Lu Chuan out of the Hua mansion. Hua Kai and Wu and the others did not follow, but continued to stay in the Hua family yard. After following Hua Tao out, the two of them came to a restaurant together. The restaurant is 3 stories high. It is the most luxurious restaurant in the entire Huacheng. Guests from other places who have a little money will choose to stay in this restaurant. Hua Tao is a distinguished guest here. Before he entered the door, a maid hurried out and greeted Hua Tao and walked in. There were also several women with seductive makeup surrounding Lu Chuan, and they couldn't help drooling when they saw Lu Chuan's handsome face. Lu Chuan just pushed them with disgust and followed Hua Tao in. I didn't expect him to be in the lobby, performing with dancers. Let's go over there. In the center of the restaurant lobby, there was an exquisite stage with 5 dancers showing off their seductive bodies. The men in the audience were so fascinated that they even forgot to eat the food on the table. Let's go, I'll take you to see him. Hua Tao brought Lu Chuan to Zhenxianyu. Lu Chuan looked at Zhenxianyu. He had a standard square face with obvious fat on his face and a strong body. He was obviously a martial artist. You are the head of the Hua family, Hua Tao? I haven't seen you for a long time. You haven't changed much. Zhenxianyu smiled faintly when he saw Hua Tao. Then he set his sights on Lu Chuan and looked at him with some curiosity. Xianyu, I came to you because I need your help. It's okay, just tell me what it is. I'll help if I can. You are the head of the Hua family, and I can't refuse your respect. Hua Tao smiled brightened immediately after hearing this. That's great. It's like this. Aren't you invited to Yang Menghuan's dance? You still have 3 places for accompanying. I wonder if you can take him to see it? After saying that, Hua Tao looked at Lu Chuan. If you are willing to help me, I will be very grateful to you. Hua Tao said to Zhenxianyu with a sincere face. Zhenxianyu looked at Lu Chuan and asked, do you really want to see Yang Menghuan's performance? You are not secretly in love with her, are you? Master, do I need to ask this? Who doesn't love Yang Menghuan? Countless proud sons of heaven dream of marrying her, but no matter how talented a person is, there is no such opportunity. A young warrior sitting behind him said with a smile. Zhenxianyu continued, that's true. Who doesn't want to watch Yang Menghuan's performance? But you want to watch it, and my apprentice wants to watch it even more. Why should I give you the quota? These 3 have all had a round of sparring in the Zhen family martial arts hall. I rewarded the 3 with the best performance to watch Yang Menghuan's performance. Such a precious opportunity, why should I give it to you if I don't keep it for my own people? Zhenxianyu stared at Lu Chuan with his eyes, as if asking, what are you going to give? Hua Tao scratched his head in embarrassment. His face became useless in front of Zhenxianyu. Obviously, Lu Chuan didn't have this opportunity. Zhenxianyu didn't plan to give up the quota. Xianyu, for the sake of our friendship, please help him this time. This is related to our family's major affairs. Zhenxianyu looked at Hua Tao and asked curiously, what does it have to do with your family if he goes to watch a performance? Do you really think he can seduce Yang Menghuan? Hua Tao wanted to say something else, but was interrupted by Lu Chuan. Since these 3 have earned their spots based on their strength, how about I earn my spots based on my strength? Zhenxianyu stared at Lu Chuan. What do you mean? Do you want to spar with me? But I don't think you have the courage. If you want to spar with my 3 disciples, it's not impossible, but if you get hurt, just don't make trouble. Zhenxianyu smiled disdainfully. In his eyes, Lu Chuan was no match for his 3 disciples. He leaned back in his chair, picked up the wine glass, and drank it all. It's not impossible to spar with you, but if he is your disciple, I can barely make do. Lu Chuan said calmly. After saying this, everyone present fell into silence. Zhenxianyu directly stuck his head out and asked, what did you say? If I spar with you, it's not impossible. Do you understand? Lu Chuan said calmly, as if he didn't take it as a big deal. Well, good boy, you are so arrogant. You want to spar with me? Do you know what nonsense you are talking about? I think you are looking for death. He stared at Lu Chuan fiercely, but Lu Chuan still sat firmly in his position, motionless. At this time, a disciple behind him volunteered and stood up. Master, let me teach this kid a lesson. You don't need to do it yourself. He is not worthy of you doing it yourself. a young man in a grey martial arts uniform stood up and looked at Lu Chuan arrogantly, as if he didn't take Lu Chuan seriously at all. For him, the identity of Xianyu's disciple gave him extremely high self-esteem, which made him look down on martial artists from other places. Facing Lu Chuan, up here, he would not take him seriously. Okay, then come on, let's make a deal in advance. If I defeat him, can I take his place? Xianyu nodded slightly. Yes, as long as you can defeat him, this place is yours, and I will take you to the dance. Lu Chuan looked at the young man and said, come on, right here or... Xianyu stood up, looked at everyone, and shouted loudly, the dance performance is over. Everyone clear the field. My apprentice wants to fight here. As soon as these words came out, the dancers who were still dancing on the field stopped immediately. After seeing that the person who shouted was Xianyu, they hurried off the stage, and did not dare to stay too long. The rest of the people also made way for the venue, and vacated the stage. Let's go, let me see what strength you have. Xianyu's disciple walked onto the stage, and clasped his fists to Lu Chuan. My name is Fang He, 5th grade Martial King Realm, please teach me more. If I hurt you, I won't pay for the soup and medicine. He smiled faintly, with the corners of his mouth raised proudly, as if the outcome had been decided. Lu Chuan stood there, clasped his fists towards him and said, I'm Lu Chuan, please give me your guidance. Won't you tell me what realm you are in? You are not qualified to know. Fang He's face turned cold, and he said disdainfully, I'm not qualified to know? I hope you can still be stubborn after I beat you up later. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 597 Pride. Fang He clenched his fists and took a fighting stance, ready to attack Lu Chuan at any time. For Lu Chuan, it was easy to deal with a 5th grade Martial King Realm guy. There was no need to use the Sun God Fire, the 9 Heavens Mysterious Fire, or the Immortal Golden Eyes. The battle could be ended with just 3 or 2 punches. Seeing Lu Chuan's indifferent look, Fang He was immediately furious. How dare you look down on me? I'm a warrior of the Zhen family. You ignorant guy. Today, let me teach you a lesson. The people watching around all looked over and started to discuss excitedly. I didn't expect to see martial artists sparring in this restaurant, and I don't even have to buy a ticket. This is such a steal. Who wants to watch dancers when there's a fight to watch? Let's fight. A martial artist from the Zhen family in Xianxu City meets someone from the Hua family. What's so interesting about this duel? Indeed, although this martial artist from the Zhen family is only at the 5th level of the Martial King realm, his actual combat strength is definitely stronger. That's not nonsense. After all, he is a martial artist trained by the Zhen family. How can he be the same as an ordinary martial artist? Let the fight start. I can't wait. Although they all knew that Fang He would win, the fist-to-flesh fight still attracted a lot of attention. Xianyu looked at Hua Tao and said calmly, I will beat this guy from your family to pieces later. I hope you won't blackmail me. Mr. Zan, you are joking. I won't do that. That's good. Now we can start. Fang He, teach him a lesson. He wants to replace your place in the dance. This opportunity is hard won. I hope you will work hard. Don't worry, master. You know my strength best. Just watch my performance next. After hearing this, the audience around looked over with envy. So they are here to attend Yang Menghuan's dance. I'm so envious. If I can see this dance in my life, I won't live in vain. No wonder he dared to challenge the warriors of the Zhen family. It turns out that he wanted to watch the beautiful women dancing. I want to watch it too, but I don't dare to fight with them. What should I do? Then why are you talking nonsense? Just watch honestly. On the stage, under the attention of everyone, Fang He became excited. The most exciting thing is the battle that everyone is watching. I will beat you and make you flee in disgrace before everyone's eyes. Without saying anything, he rushed directly towards Lu Chuan. Swish. His steps were extremely fast and flexible. He swayed back and forth, and tried to fake Lu Chuan's attack many times. Seeing this, Lu Chuan just sneered. This guy used his body movement martial arts right from the start. It seems that he really wants to win. Swish. Fang He said nothing, and then clenched his fist, and swung it towards Lu Chuan. At this moment, a phantom of a lion appeared faintly above his fist. The phantom of the lion's head, pushed by Fang He's fist, hit Lu Chuan. "Get out of here," he roared, almost using all his strength right from the start, trying to end the fight as soon as possible. However, Lu Chuan just stood there, intending to take Fang He's fist head on. To deal with this guy, Lu Chuan didn't need to use martial arts or divine fire. He simply threw a punch with all his strength. Lu Chuan's fist hit Fang He's fist. Bang! The two fists collided, making a series of muffled sounds. The huge force directly exploded a wave of air and attacked the surroundings. At the moment when the two fists touched, Fang He, who was originally full of confidence, was suddenly horrified and hurriedly wanted to retract his fist. However, it was too late. Lu Chuan's fierce power hit him instantly and directly blasted Fang He back, making him fly 7 or 8 meters backwards and fall heavily to the ground. Lu Chuan's fierce punch directly hit Fang He and rolled several times, and he fell heavily to the ground. After struggling for a long time, he finally got up with difficulty. Zhan Xianyu, who was off the court, hadn't reacted yet and saw that Fang He had already flown out and fell to the ground. He instantly widened his eyes. Lu Chuan's punch was plain and simple, just a single punch. Fang He's punch was a martial art of the Zhen family, the Angry Lion Fist. However, in such a fight, Fang He was still crushed. The difference in strength between the two sides was already quite large. This was a completely one-sided crushing trend. The two were almost the same age, but the difference in strength was so exaggerated that Zhan Xianyu felt a little unbelievable. The rest of the audience were also surprised. This is definitely an upset. How could Fang He lose? Isn't he a warrior of the Zhen family? Could it be that the Hua family has become stronger than the Zhen family? Impossible. Who is this person called Lu Chuan? I have never heard of his name before. I have no idea where he came from. There has never been such a person in the Hua family before. The crowd was surprised and puzzled. Among all the people, only Hua Tao remained calm and was not surprised by the result at all. Zhan Xianyu looked over, sized up Hua Tao, and asked, "Do you know that Lu Chuan will definitely win?" "Of course, I believe in his strength, otherwise I would have stopped him when he was about to go on stage just now." Hua Tao's words made Zhan Xianyu fall into deep thought. This Lu Chuan is not from your Hua family. How do you know him? You don't need to know this. Now that he has defeated Fang He, you said you would give him a place. You should not go back on your word, right? Who am I, Zhan Xianyu? I will keep my word and will never go back on my word. He did defeat Fang He, and I will fulfill it. At this time, Fang He on the stage climbed up with difficulty and looked at Lu Chuan in surprise. Blood had begun to ooze out of the corners of his mouth. His face turned pale, and his whole body looked very weak, with both arms dangling. I haven't lost yet. Continue. He was arrogant and could not tolerate his failure, so he stared at Lu Chuan viciously and wanted to continue fighting. "If you keep fighting, you will die," Lu Chuan said. "I didn't lose. I will defeat you. Why would I lose to you? You are a warrior from Hua Cheng. How can you defeat me?" Without saying anything, he clenched his fists and prepared to attack again. Lu Chuan's eyes turned cold, and he said in a deep voice, "Since you don't admit defeat, I will beat you until you admit defeat." Swish! Exclamation mark. The next moment, Lu Chuan rushed towards Fang He. He activated the martial arts extreme shadow flash, and black after images appeared behind him, and he moved in front of Fang He almost instantly. Fang He looked at Lu Chuan in surprise. Lu Chuan's speed scared him directly. At this moment, Zhan Xianyu, who was off the court, felt something was wrong and rushed to the stage to block Fang He. Bang! Exclamation mark. Zhan Xianyu raised his arm to block in front of him and blocked Lu Chuan's punch. However, this punch shocked his heart. Chapter 598. The victory is decided. Zhan Xianyu saw that the situation was not good and rushed to the stage to protect his apprentice. However, Lu Chuan's punch was still solid. The heavy punch hit Zhen Xianyu's arm, and he immediately took several steps back, and his body almost lost its balance. Zhen Xianyu, who was standing still, was suddenly horrified. The power of this punch was completely beyond his imagination. The strength of the young man in front of him should not be underestimated. He stood in place, patted his clothes, and said, "This competition is considered to be your win." After this, Fang He was anxious. "Master, let me continue to fight him. I haven't lost yet. I don't admit defeat," he said very stubbornly. Even if he was beaten by his opponent, his self-esteem prevented him from admitting defeat. What's more, he was admitting defeat in front of the master, and he asked the master to help him admit defeat personally. Even after being beaten back step by step, the master had to come on stage to save him personally, which was simply embarrassing. Naturally, he was reluctant in his heart and wanted to fight back a little bit. "Stop talking nonsense. If you keep fighting, you're just looking for death," Fang He still said stubbornly. "I've learned so many martial arts, but I don't have the space to display them. If I admit defeat like this, I won't accept it." Zhen Xianyu looked back at him and angrily said, "You didn't use martial arts, but did others?" "He didn't use martial arts either. He only used 3 or 2 punches to beat you into this state. What else do you have to say? Your strength is completely inferior to others. You should face the reality. I don't want to waste time here to persuade you earnestly." Hearing this, Fang He sighed helplessly and lowered his head. At this moment, he was so ashamed that he wanted to find a crack in the ground to crawl into. Not only did he fail to show the momentum that a Zhen family warrior should have, but he also lost the opportunity to appreciate Yang Menghuan's dance. This time he really lost a lot. The other 2 disciples of Zhen Xianyu looked over and just smiled gloatingly, not taking Fang He too seriously. At this time, Hua Tao stood up, looked at Zhen Xianyu, and said, "The result is out. Since Lu Chuan won, he should be given the spot." Zhen Xianyu sighed helplessly. "Don't worry, I'm not the kind of person who doesn't keep his word. Since he beat my apprentice, I will keep the spot for him. Tomorrow night is the day of Yang Menghuan's dance performance. I will take you to Wanhua Garden tomorrow evening." Lu Chuan nodded slightly and bowed his hands to thank him. "Thank you Mr. Zhen for your help. Hua Tao, is this person from your Hua family? He has such strength at such a young age. If he is trained well, he will be a big hit in the future." Hua Tao smiled awkwardly. "Mr. Zhen has a good vision. He does have great potential, but he is not from our Hua family. We are just friends." "Oh, is that so?" He looked at Lu Chuan thoughtfully, pondered for a moment, turned around and walked off the stage. "See you tomorrow night." After saying this, he took his apprentice upstairs to rest. It was a close call, but we still won. Fortunately, we got this opportunity. Hua Tao took a deep breath and calmed down his nervous mood. It was a close call? How was it a close call? Lu Chuan came to Hua Tao after he stepped down from the stage and asked curiously. "Just now, when Zhen Xianyu rushed to the stage to protect his apprentice, you threw that punch. I was really afraid that you would make him angry. Fortunately, he didn't say anything. I remember that Zhen Xianyu has a bad temper. I didn't expect that he didn't hold you accountable after you accidentally punched him." Lu Chuan shrugged slightly. "Maybe he has his own reasons. Regardless of that, let's go back first." So, the 2 walked out of the restaurant and started to return to the Hua family mansion along the street. When they arrived at the gate of the Hua family mansion, they saw Hua Qianwu standing at the gate waiting from a distance. "You're back. How did it go?" Hua Qianwu hurriedly went up to him and looked at Lu Chuan expectantly. "It's done. I will also attend the dance tomorrow. I will find a way to contact Yang Menghuan and try to get the medicinal materials from her." Hua Qianwu nodded heavily and looked at Lu Chuan gratefully. "Thank you for your hard work. This last material can only be done by you. I also want to gather the materials as soon as possible. Otherwise, I have been holding this sacred tree branch, but cannot absorb the spiritual energy from it. Then, in my hand, it is no different from an ordinary branch." Lu Chuan gathered the materials, which not only helped the Hua family, but also helped himself absorb the spiritual energy from it and enhance his cultivation. After returning to the mansion, several people had dinner together. After dinner, Lu Chuan went to bed early. The next morning, after Lu Chuan got up, he still practiced his body skills as usual. He had already practiced the extreme shadow flash to the realm of small success, and could already exert 70% to 80% of the martial arts. If he could practice to the great success or perfection, then the true effect and strength of this martial arts would be truly demonstrated. However, it is easy to get started, but difficult to master anything. From small success to great success, and then from great success to perfection, the time required in between is quite long. When Lu Chuan was practicing in the yard, Gu Xiaoran stood by and watched. Seeing Lu Chuan's body skills improving day by day, she was also very happy. In the past 2 days, she and Gu Xiaoran have also been practicing hard. With the help of the resources of the Hua family, their practice speed is very fast. They have reached the peak of the Saint realm, and are not far from breaking through to the Martial King realm. In the evening, Hua Tao found Lu Chuan in the yard. It's time, let's go to the Garden of 10,000 Flowers. After Hua Tao came over, Lu Chuan stopped and wiped the beads of sweat on his forehead. No problem, let's go. So, Hua Tao led the way and the two left the Hua mansion. They were the only 2 people in the entire Hua family who had the quota to participate, so there were only the 2 of them on this trip. The streets of Hua Cheng were still prosperous and lively at night. The 2 rows of red lanterns on the streets illuminated the streets very brightly. Lu Chuan and Hua Tao shuttled through the crowd and soon arrived at the Garden of 10,000 Flowers. At the entrance of Wan Hua Garden, there were 2 rows of maids in long skirts, welcoming guests to enter. At the entrance, there were 2 sturdy guards, checking whether the people coming in had invitations. Hua Tao took out an invitation from his arms, looked at Lu Chuan, and said, "Zhan Xiaonan hasn't come yet, wait a little longer." The 2 stood at the gate, and waited for a while. During this period, the people who entered Wan Hua Garden one after another were all rich or noble. Many people would greet him with warm smiles when they passed by Hua Tao. Lu Chuan, who was standing aside, seemed to be indifferent. This group of rich and powerful people didn't know Lu Chuan, but just regarded him as a little follower beside Hua Tao. It is normal for no one to care about him before he became famous. At this time, Lu Chuan saw a group of people in front of him, surrounding Zhan Xiaonan and walking over. Chapter 599 Yang Menghuan appears. Not far ahead, a group of people in gorgeous clothes surrounded Zhan Xiaonan. Everyone had a flattering smile on their face, constantly trying to please Zhan Xiaonan. "Mr. Zhan, I haven't seen you for a long time. It's my blessing to see you again in this flower city. Mr. Zhan, I mentioned to you last time that I wanted my son to go to your Zhan family to learn martial arts. What do you think? I brought a little gift here. Please accept it. I'm also expressing my feelings. After all, we haven't seen each other for a long time. Is the Zhan family martial arts hall still short of people? There is a talented junior in my family. If I send him to your place to experience it, his future achievements will be immeasurable." The people surrounding Zhan Xiaonan were half trying to please him, and half asking him to do things. This situation is not uncommon for him. Every time he arrives in other cities around Xianshu city, he will easily encounter similar things. There is nothing he can do about it. After all, the reputation of the Zhan family in Xianshu city has been spread. Everyone knows that an ordinary warrior can be trained to become a powerful top warrior in the future. After being sent to the Zhan family, everyone wants to send the younger generation of their family to the Zhan family in Xianshu city, but there are only so many places, and Zhan Xiaonan is helpless. Moreover, when it comes to geniuses, Xianshu city is not short of geniuses. He has no need to go to these small towns outside to find any talented warriors. "Everyone, you will disperse. I don't have any extra places to accept disciples this year. You all save money. As for those who give gifts, you should save them to buy other things, and don't waste time here." Although Zhan Xiaonan said this, there are still many people who don't give up. They still surround Zhan Xiaonan and keep begging for mercy. "I say, get away from me, are you deaf?" Zhan Xiaonan suddenly roared, and the people around him were stunned in place. They dispersed to the side and dared not harass Zhan Xiaonan again. Then, Zhan Xiaonan walked towards the gate, followed by 2 apprentices behind him. After arriving at the door, Zhan Xiaonan immediately saw Lu Chuan. Mr. Lu, you're here early. Zanshai and I walked up quickly and shook hands with Lu Chuan. I just arrived. Lu Chuan replied with a smile. Go in. I'll remember what you said yesterday. I won't go back on my word. Lu Chuan nodded slightly. I can see that you're not that kind of person. Then, they walked into the Wanhua garden together. Zanshai and Ayu took out his invitation letter and then walked into the Wanhua garden. There was a large open-air venue in the Wanhua garden. A stage had been built early, ready for Yang Menghuan to perform. There were rows of chairs in front of the stage, and some small tables were placed between the chairs. Fruit desserts were constantly delivered and placed on the tables. Zanshai and Ayu took his seat first. He sat in the front row, only 3 or 4 meters away from the stage. Lu Chuan sat on his right. Hua Tao sat in the 3rd row according to the seat specified in the invitation letter. People arrived one after another, and the dance party was about to begin. None of the people present were ordinary people. They were all elites from all walks of life. Some were top tycoons in and outside the city, some worked in the city lord's mansion, and some were top warriors like Zanshai and Ayu. Only these types of people were eligible to be invited. Other slightly ordinary people did not even have the qualifications to enter and sit in the last row. Many people came here to appreciate Yang Menghuan's dance, which was only a small part. The more important thing was to participate in such occasions, to make friends with elites from all walks of life, expand their own connections, and open up their own network of relationships. For example, Zanshai and Ayu was the main purpose of many people coming to the dance. Many people wanted to take advantage of this opportunity to get to know Zanshai and Ayu. All the people were present, the stage was ready, and the dance was officially ready to begin. At this time, a man in a blue costume walked onto the stage. He was the city lord of Huacheng, Yang Zun. He had a long face and a slightly tired look in his eyes, which should be caused by being too busy recently. He stood on the stage, glanced at the people below, cleared his throat, and said, "First of all, thank you all for being invited to the dance. I'm very grateful that you can give me this face. Of course, I'm also very grateful that you can support Menghuan's performance so much. Now, let the dance officially begin. Next, please enjoy Yang Menghuan's self-created dance, butterfly dance and flying flowers." After saying this, Yang Zun bowed deeply and then left the stage. Then, a huge red curtain slowly descended, covering the entire stage. The red cloth is very thin, and the stage can be seen dimly through the red cloth. But with this layer of cover, it will make people uncomfortable. Everyone in the audience felt a little uncomfortable. They wanted to see Yang Menghuan's figure directly, and didn't want to see her dancing posture through the red cloth, which would reduce a lot of fun. Then, Yang Menghuan took her own dance team to the stage, and began to dance slowly and perform. Her dancing posture is still moving, which makes people fascinated. The curve of her body, combined with every swing, can arouse people's heartstrings. Zanshai and Ayu looked through the red cloth. Although the dancing was moving, his face looked a little ugly. "I can't see anything, I can only see the silhouette. What's the point?" Zanshai and Ayu said helplessly. The 2 apprentices beside him also sat on the chairs a little depressed. "I finally got this chance, but I can't even see her true face." That's right, everyone says she is a stunning beauty. Many people don't even have the chance to see her. I finally got the chance, but I still can't see her. What's the point? Both of them said very unhappy. Zanshai and Ayu looked at the 2 and scolded, "Put away your attitude. If you can't see it, then don't embarrass me here." Hearing this, the 2 sat up straight and didn't dare to complain. Both of them were rough and had little life experience. Naturally, they had no interest in this dance. They came here purely to see the beauty. Zanshai and Ayu turned his head to look at Lu Chuan, smiled and said, "Don't mind their complaints, just continue to enjoy it. By the way, Lu Chuan, you came to Kunlun domain from the secular world, right?" Lu Chuan nodded slightly. "Yes, is there a problem? I went out to inquire about it at noon today, and I didn't expect that you really came from the secular world. I didn't expect that your talent is so great that you can cultivate such strength in the secular world." Hearing the master praising others, the 2 disciples showed unhappy expressions on their faces. Lu Chuan just shrugged. "The secular world is not as bad as you think." Lu Chuan, your talent is really amazing. I have been running a martial arts school for so many years and have brought out thousands of disciples, but I have never seen a young man with such a talent as you. Lu Chuan, I want to take you as my disciple. I wonder if you are willing? Chapter 600, Evil Spirit Movement. Zhan Xianyu's words surprised Lu Chuan. This guy actually wanted to take him as his apprentice. No wonder his attitude yesterday was so gentle, without the hostility of martial artist. But think about it, he defeated one of his 3 best apprentices, so his strength and potential are naturally needless to say. But the main thing now is that Lu Chuan does not need to become a disciple. Although the Zhen family in Xianxu City is very powerful and is a martial arts family, in such an environment, the growth rate will definitely be very fast. But Lu Chuan's path of cultivation is somewhat different from this. What's more, he needs to cultivate the 2 great divine fires, and I'm afraid that few people in Kunlun domain can teach him this. And this Zhen Xianyu must be unaware of these 2 divine fires. Under such circumstances, it seems that Lu Chuan's apprenticeship to him is not very beneficial. At this time, the 2 apprentices besides Zhen Xianyu looked at Lu Chuan. They didn't expect that Zhen Xianyu would actually accept a disciple one day. In the past, others begged him to become his apprentice, and it was almost rare for him to personally accept a disciple. It can even be said that this situation does not exist at all. For a moment, the 2 disciples were a little jealous of Lu Chuan, who could make their master speak so gently. However, Lu Chuan shook his head slightly. I don't have this idea for the time being, let's talk about it later. As soon as these words came out, Zhan Xianyu was stunned. He looked at Lu Chuan for a long time and couldn't recover. The direct request to accept a disciple was rejected directly. This is the first time in his life. In the past, every time he accepted a disciple, others were excited, as if they were injected with chicken blood. But this Lu Chuan not only had a calm attitude, but also directly and decisively refused. Not only Zhen Xianyu was surprised, but even the 2 disciples next to him were dumbfounded. No, did I hear correctly? He actually said he didn't have this idea. He must be crazy? Doesn't he know the strength of the Zhen family's martial arts? I guess he has never been to Xianxu City at all. Otherwise, he would not have said this. Indeed, if he went to Xianxu City and learned about the strength of the Zhen family in Xianxu City, he would probably regret what he said today. Such a good opportunity, it's a pity to miss it. The 2 disciples shook their heads and sighed. Zhan Xianyu looked at Lu Chuan and sighed helplessly. He also believed that his disciple was right. Lu Chuan came to Kunlun domain from the secular world, and he had just arrived not long ago. He must not know much about Kunlun domain, and it is even more impossible for him to have been to Xianxu City and know about the Zhen family. Therefore, he may have chosen to refuse because of ignorance. Thinking of this, Zhan Xianyu felt relieved. In this case, as long as he was brought to Xianxu City and let him understand the strength of the Zhen family, he would naturally change his mind. This is certain. Zhan Xianyu made up his mind that no matter what, he must accept Lu Chuan as his apprentice. He had never seen such a talented young warrior. If he missed this opportunity and was taken advantage of by others, he would lose a lot. In the future, do you plan to go to Xianxu City? Lu Chuan thought for a moment. Xianxu City is closer to the center of Kunlun domain and closer to the Lu family. If nothing unexpected happens, he will go there sooner or later. This is certain, but when to go depends on when the fairy grass can be obtained. If nothing unexpected happens, I will go to Xianxu City. Zhan Xianyu's mouth corners slightly raised, and he hurriedly said, well, if you go to Xianxu City, I can take you there. But I don't know when I will go. Then I will stay in Huacheng first. When you want to go to Xianxu City, come to me, and I will take you there. How about it? Lu Chuan thought his proposal was not bad. It was better to have someone take you there than to go there alone in an unfamiliar place. Then I'll trouble you. If I have to go to Xianxu City one day, I will come to you. It shouldn't take long, just a few days. Zhan Xianyu nodded slightly, then turned his head to look at the 2 apprentices. We will stay here for a few days and go back later. The 2 apprentices were stunned. The master actually accommodated him so much in order to accept an apprentice. This kind of treatment was the first time they had seen. The master, who used to be strict and cold, had become so easygoing now, as if he had changed into a completely different person. At the same time, they also began to envy Lu Chuan. Why did the master value him so much? At this time, Yang Menghuan danced behind the red curtain. As several musicians played music, the dance gradually reached a climax, and Yang Menghuan danced more vigorously. But at this moment, Lu Chuan suddenly felt that the bronze sword on his back made a tremor. Lu Chuan suddenly widened his eyes, his heart condensed, and he looked around seriously. The bronze sword reacted. An evil spirit appeared here, but he didn't know where it was for the time being. But! Exclamation mark. The buzzing sound was getting worse, which made Lu Chuan feel a little bad. It was the first time for him to feel such a fierce trembling sound. This was definitely not an ordinary evil spirit. The key is, who is this evil spirit in? He has no idea now. There are too many people around him, and he can't tell them apart at all. Zanshai and Ayu next to him, the apprentice next to him, and the others sitting next to him are all possible. But Lu Chuan can't try them one by one now. No matter how the bronze sword reminds him, he has no way. Could it be Yang Menghuan who is dancing on the stage? She is indeed a bit different today. Judging from the audience's reaction, it should be the first time for her to dance behind the red gauze. This is obviously not for artistic presentation, but to cover up something. Lu Chuan began to gradually focus on Yang Menghuan. Maybe it was really that she was possessed by an evil spirit and her body had changed, so she didn't dare to show herself in front of everyone. Thinking of this, Lu Chuan took a deep breath. Although this is possible, the dance performance is now halfway through, and he can't interrupt rashly and then rush up with a long sword. If he did that, he would definitely be regarded as a thug and be besieged by a group of people. Lu Chuan held his chin and began to think. After thinking about it, he still felt that he needed to determine who was possessed by the evil spirit. Just take out the bronze sword and aim it at the target. If it emits a faint glow, it proves that the person has an evil spirit. If there is no light, it means there is no evil spirit. Lu Chuan brought the scabbard on his back to the front of him and slowly pulled out the sword, trying not to alarm the people around him. The people around were seriously appreciating the dance, and almost no one noticed Lu Chuan. So, Lu Chuan slowly took out the bronze sword. When the blade was aimed at Yang Menghuan on the stage, sure enough, the sword was covered with a layer of faint glow. Lu Chuan's brows tightened. Sure enough, it was exactly as he guessed. The evil spirit was attached to Yang Menghuan. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.